From your breaking news and weather authority, this is 13 Wham News at 10 on Fox Rochester.
Good evening. Tonight, we begin with breaking news in Rochester. Sources tell 13 Wham that a police officer has been shot along with 3 others. This is happening within the last 45 minutes near Warsaw Street on Hudson Avenue. This video within the last 10 minutes. 13 Wham's Rachel Glazer is live on the scene to bring us the very latest. Rachel?
Hey, Jenny. Yeah, they are keeping us pretty far back. They just set up a media staging area for us at Hudson and Avenue D, but for blocks, all you can see are police cars up and down Hudson Avenue. I'd say it goes from about Warsaw to Clifford Avenue. I've never seen this many police cars all together, and they really haven't given us much information at this time. All a Rochester police officer would tell me when I got here was it's bad. We're hearing from witnesses, multiple people shot, but the conditions that they're in, we still don't know. All we're hearing from witnesses is that it was an ugly scene out here earlier, so we're out here trying to get to where we're supposed to be. Police are keeping us back, but we're going to keep trying to get you as much information as we can.
All right, Rachel, hang on the phone for a moment because we've been working our sources on this end and have some information that might be able to help you and inform our viewers as well. We have learned that the Rochester police officer shot in this incident is undergoing surgery at Rochester General Hospital at this hour. There is no word on the extent of his injuries. Of course, as you know, and as we see here, the area is blocked off, the area of Hudson and Warsaw Street. And we have also learned, Rachel, that Monroe County Sheriff's deputies have been brought in to assist Rochester police because, as you know, many of them are tied up with this police investigation. So if you see Monroe County Sheriff's deputies out there on Rochester streets tonight, this is the reason why. So we know that we have 4 people shot, one of whom is a Rochester police officer undergoing surgery at this hour. Rachel, do we know that police are looking for a suspect in these shootings?
It does appear that they are looking for someone in the area right now. And you mentioned the sheriff's office out here. They seem to be on the outskirts of the investigation scene right now. Police are up and down through this area that they've got blocked off. I'm on a side street right now, and we can just see all of the evidence markers, like from 1 to 7. And it looks like they're marking bullets on the sidewalk here. So police are walking up and down with their flashlights. Definitely looking for something as they continue this investigation out here.
Well, it is a massive scene because, as we know, 4 people have been shot in this area. We have a crew at Rochester General Hospital. Of course, Rachel Glazer live on the scene, Hudson Avenue and Warsaw Street. We're going to continue to follow this story and bring you any new information as it develops. Rachel, thank you. Stay in touch and feel free to get back with us if you learn anything new.
All right. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you. Breaking news tonight in Rochester that we continue to follow as we have since the beginning of this half hour. A Rochester police officer has been shot on duty tonight. The scene, Hudson Avenue and Warsaw Street. 3 other people also shot. 13 Wham's Rachel Glazer is live now on the scene for us with an update. Rachel, what can you tell us from there?
Well, Denny, I don't know if you can hear, there's some dogs barking. The K-9 units at the sheriff's office are out here searching the area. Still lots of police officers. Hudson Avenue blocked off. Now, I'm at Avenue D and Hudson right now, but just a few minutes ago, I was over at Hudson and Warsaw, and that's where we saw investigators searching a home right on the corner there. Investigators were going through the house and talking to people there. That's where we saw a lot of the evidence tags lined up. So I know you guys are getting a lot more information back there, but officers on the scene, all one police officer would tell me is that whatever happened out here is bad. On your end, you guys got confirmed that Rochester police officer was shot on duty, 3 others. So lots of people are out here standing around waiting for answers. Should be getting a briefing from police in the next hour, so we are waiting for that. But as far as we know now, police are searching the area, and 4 people, including a Rochester police officer, have been shot.
All right, thank you, Rachel. I know you're going to continue to stay on the scene. We've been working this story, many sources. Don Elhart as well, just on the phone a moment ago. What have you been able to learn?
Just on the phone with Bob Duffy, who is in Albany right now and has been in contact with the state troopers and state police, and hearing the same reports that we are hearing, that the officer has been shot and shot in the head. We do have a name that we're not using yet, but I called Bob Duffy for a couple of reasons. One, if this officer for some reason does not make it, when was the last time we had an officer shot and killed in the line of duty? And no one can remember. We've had officers dying in a scuba accident, Ron Siver, but Bob Duffy thinks it is probably the 1930s or 1940s, going back that far, and even he can't come up with a name at this point. But he is getting updates from state troopers, so obviously this is a very, very serious incident. We're waiting, as we've heard from Alexis, to find out from the hospital what the progress is, but not looking good at this point. And it could well be, from the names we're getting, an officer that was one of those that was sworn in when Bob Duffy was police chief. So the name familiar to him, and we'll be trying to track that down, see what we can find out.
All right, well, we have Alexis now at Rochester General Hospital, perhaps to give us an update on the officer's condition. Alexis, have you learned anything new?
I have not learned anything new. We are still waiting for an update on that officer's condition. What I can tell you, it is a very unsettling scene. Excuse me, a very unsettling scene here. Just hearing this news. So far, what we have seen, we have another squad car racing through. We've seen much of that all night. The brotherhood and the sisterhood here in full force in support of that officer. Go ahead and take a look behind us. This is the hospital. We see a large group gathering close to that building. We see a lot of officers in uniform, not in uniform, hugging, shaking hands, certainly consoling with one another. We've seen a lot of squad cars that are here, and also some that are off duty right now, just showing up, parking in the grass, crossing that police tape to get up there to be with their colleagues. In terms of accessibility to the hospital here, there are some limits, some restrictions, and you can certainly see that by the yellow police tape that is up. But we are still waiting to hear from the hospital in terms of what is actually accessible to people when they are at the hospital and how they can get around. We are working to get that information, and we'll pass that along to you.
All right, thank you, Alexis. Again, reporting live from the scene of that officer being shot. You did learn that the officer had been shot in the head, and this is a very serious incident. Yeah,
it may have been shot more than once. We're going to report shot in the head and possibly shot either in the stomach or perhaps wearing the bulletproof vest somewhere in the side. But I think, and it's very tough to make any judgments right now. Judging from the tone that we are getting from people as officers react to this, it certainly does not look very good at this point.
Very serious. Yeah. We should point out 3 others we did learn were also shot on the scene. We have not learned about their conditions. We're continuing to track those conditions as well. It's coming in very fast, but we're working very hard to confirm everything that we learned to make sure that we are right on.
And also the way they are securing that area, there's reason to believe there may be others involved, but they are still looking for. Whether it was one of the active shooters in this or not, we're not sure. But that whole area in Hudson and Warsaw being watched very carefully right now.
Yeah, it all happened about 9:30 tonight, so this is all very new to us, and we're working very hard to confirm everything for you. You may see things and read things on social media that may or may not be true. We are working very hard to confirm the facts, and we'll continue to monitor this situation live from Hudson Avenue and Rochester General Hospital, the 2 main scenes tonight. We'll bring you the very latest when we come back on Fox.
From your breaking news and weather authority, this is 13 Wham News at 11 in high definition.
We begin with breaking news in the city tonight. A Rochester police officer and 3 others have been shot. This happening within the last hour and 45 minutes near Hudson Avenue and Warsaw Street.
We have team coverage. Alexis Arnold standing by live at the hospital where that officer is being treated. Rachel Glazer live at the scene. We do want to point out, though, the officer in grave condition. We'll get to the very latest from the hospital in a moment, but we'll start with you, Rachel. What is the latest from the scene?
Well, Jenny, lots of police officers out here. Still a chaotic, active crime scene out here. Now, we're at Avenue D and Hudson, so the shooting happened about 3 or 4 blocks north of us. That's where a Rochester police officer was shot while on duty, and police have confirmed that he was shot at least once in the head in serious condition. 3 others were also shot at that location around 9:30 tonight. We don't have any word on their conditions, but Some of the witnesses out here say that one of those 3 people was a young boy. Again, that's not something that police have confirmed, but it's the one consistent thing that we're hearing over and over again from people. Neighbors who live at near that intersection say it sounded like a gunfight. They couldn't even count how many shots were fired. It was one right after the other. I was over at Hudson and Warsaw just 15 minutes ago, and you could see the evidence tags lined up. I would say that there were 9 marking shell casings out there. So still an active crime scene. We are hoping to get briefed by police out here in the next hour or so, but you can see there are just sirens and police cars lining up and down Hudson Avenue, and you can really see on the officers' faces out here, especially RPD, that they are just struggling to be out here knowing that one of their fellow officers is at the hospital fighting for their life right now.
Rachel, you mentioned it's an active crime scene at this point. I know you were down in that area. Can you tell us what restrictions are being placed on people now, and do we get any indication they are still looking for suspects or perhaps an active shooter?
Don, honestly, it's hard to say. They do have most of Hudson Avenue blocked off, and then some of the side streets blocked off. Investigators are walking through that area with flashlights. Some of the sheriff's officers have their canine units out here searching the area, but there doesn't seem to be that sense of urgency that there is an active shooter, but they are looking, they are continuing their investigation, but at this time, just looking at how close that they are letting some people get to the scene, it doesn't appear that people out here are in any immediate danger.
All right, Rachel Glazer standing by. We will come back to you. Obviously, a lot of attention focused on Rochester General, where that officer is being treated.
Yeah, and last word, he is in serious condition. 13 Wham's Alexis Arnold is monitoring the very latest on the officer's condition, where other officers are keeping watch and vigil to get the latest. Alexis?
Yeah, Jenny and Don, you mentioned serious condition. We are still waiting to get an updated condition on that officer. What I can tell you, being here for the past hour, it's a very unsettling scene here. When you hear this type of news, it's almost gut-wrenching, and we're seeing a heavy police presence. Not only Rochester police officers, we're seeing officers, law enforcement agencies from other departments, from neighboring departments, not only just officers in uniform, we're seeing off-duty officers congregating here as well, here together to show support for one another and that officer who is injured. Earlier tonight, again, we've been here over the past hour, we saw a large group of officers closer to the hospital building, hugging, shaking hands, obviously here in support for one another, that officer again and his family. Something else we're trying to figure out, because if you've noticed behind us, you can see some police tape, a lot of police cars, some roadblocks in some areas. So a lot of people are worried about accessibility to the hospital, and we are trying to get answers for people who want to know how can they get around here, where do they need to go, and how do they get there if they need to come to Rochester General Hospital tonight. And of course, we are working to get that information. We're going to be here throughout the night, and we will pass along any updated information to you. Jenny, Don?
Alexis, for some perspective, the officer arrived there probably about 9:45 or so. There were a lot of officers there when he arrived. How has the situation changed since the officer's been undergoing surgery?
We've seen some squad cars leave, but we've seen a steady stream just pouring in here. I'll give you an example. To my right, you could see most of the grass here was empty, but a lot of squad cars have filled in. Also just cars from off-duty officers who have shown up as well.
All right, thank you, Alexis. Our thoughts, along with so many others, at the hospital tonight with that officer.
For those watching right now, we haven't been able to tell you an awful lot, other than an officer been shot, 3 others, they're being treated, a lot of unanswered questions. We will remain on the air until we can answer those questions for you, so make sure you stay tuned. We want to recap this a little bit to let people know what we do know at this point.
4 people, including a Rochester police officer, were shot on Hudson Avenue about 9:30 tonight.
Now, 2 of those individuals, including the officer, taken to Rochester General Hospital. That's where Alexis Arnold will be standing by. No official word yet on their conditions. But the tone, as you heard from Alexis at the RGH, appears to be grave. As soon as we hear from any doctors or any hospital spokesman, we will go directly to Alexis to bring you up to date on that.
And we're always online, 13wham.com as well, our Facebook page and our Twitter accounts. Stay tuned to 13 Wham News in this half hour, and we'll bring you the very latest as well. An update now on our breaking news, and it's with great sadness that we share with you the Rochester police officer shot on duty on Hudson Avenue tonight has died. He was undergoing surgery at Rochester General Hospital, but sources do confirm to 13 Wham News that officer did pass away. We are waiting to hear from the police chief at this hour.
We do have Alexis Arnold on the phone right now to bring us up to date on that. Alexis, are you hearing that at the hospital as well?
I have not heard any that information, have not
seen any signs or indications of that to change tonight. Of course, we are standing by in case there is an official word that comes down on our end, or if we see any kind of a visual sign from the officers who are here tonight.
All right, Alexis, we will check back with you. As we said, we have confirmed that the officer has passed away. That will be the 9th officer shot and killed in the line of duty in the history of the Rochester Police Department. We will look back on that as we proceed through this broadcast, also bring you up to date on what is happening at the scene over at Hudson and Warsaw Streets tonight.
Yeah, we are waiting to hear from the police chief at this hour, and as soon as we do, we will bring it to you.
Our coverage of breaking news continues. 4 people shot, including a Rochester City police officer who was shot and killed tonight in that shooting incident at Hudson near Warsaw Street in the city. We have continuing coverage both from the scene and from the hospital.
13 Wham's Alexis Arnold is at Rochester General Hospital, and Rachel Glazer is on the scene. The very latest, you described a very chaotic scene about 10 o'clock tonight. How has that changed or not?
Well, Jenny, just a few minutes ago, some of the sheriff's deputies started to pull out of here, but that's really the only change that we've seen out here. Still an active scene. Unclear if they are looking for a shooter or if anyone's in custody at this time, but Hudson Avenue is still blocked off. Police officers have this whole area lined off, and we're waiting for a police briefing, hopefully in the next hour or so. But the shooting happened about 3 blocks north of us. We're at Avenue D in Hudson, and it happened closer to Warsaw. Now, that's where the Rochester police officer was shot. 3 others also shot in that area around 9:30 tonight. We got on scene around 9:40, and we saw lots of ambulances pulling out of the area. Still no word on the conditions of the 3 other people shot, but as you guys mentioned, we have just learned in the last few minutes or so that the Rochester police officer has died because of that gunshot to the head. Now, we've seen investigators spend a lot of time at a house near the intersection of Hudson and Warsaw. They've been going in and out of that house. They searched that house, interviewing people along here. So, again, we're still waiting to get a lot of information on the circumstances that led up to this shooting. But out here, you can see still an active scene, and you can just tell by looking at the officers' faces, it's been a very tough night for them. Waiting to see what would happen with their fellow officer, and then now just learning that he has, in fact, passed away.
All right, Rachel Glazer live on the scene. We ask her to remain in place as well. A lot of questions, as Rachel points out, unanswered. What led up to this? How many people were involved? We do know that 4 people in all were shot. The Rochester police officer shot in the head, died at Rochester General Hospital within the last hour. And that's where Alexis Arnold is standing by now.
Yeah, and if we could share for a moment some reaction tonight from the mayor via her Twitter feed, referring to our report that the officer had died. She said, "This is sad. This city needs to wake up. Perhaps this will be a wake-up call." Right now, many officers standing vigil at the hospital where that officer passed away a short time ago. 13 Wham's Alexis Arnold live now at Rochester General for the very latest from the scene there. Rachel, or I'm sorry, Alexis.
Jenny, it seems most of those officers that we saw congregating up towards the building have gone inside. Moments ago, we did see a large group outside, and they've all rushed inside, certainly to be amongst each other, perhaps with the family. Certainly our hearts go out to the department and the family involved here. No sign of the chief, the police chief, and we imagine at some point it could be a while, obviously, before we hear from him, because they are grieving at this point. So still, waiting for updates and to get new information, but we will be here passing along any information to you. Again, RGH, the hospital where that officer has died, and it's a pretty active scene here where now the hospital is turned into a site of a vigil for that fallen officer. We've seen not only Rochester police officers here, but we've seen law enforcement from various agencies. I believe I've seen a Rondequoit. We saw a Greece Police Department, and as well there are off-duty officers here as well, as you can imagine.
Have we gotten any word from the hospital yet, Alexis, on who else is being treated there? I know we have, and perhaps the suspect or one of the suspects being treated at Strong, and Patrice Walsh may be able to join us a little bit later from there. Do we know of any other of the victims that are there at this time?
I've placed calls with the hospital staff, have not heard back, still waiting to hear back. I imagine they're tied up trying to get answers as well to us. So we will keep pressing for information, and as soon as we learn more, we will make that available.
All right, Alexis and Arnold again. Both Alexis and Rachel standing by tonight. We will remain on the air until we can give you some of the answers that we're looking for tonight.
Yeah, the big question, who is this officer and how long has he served with the department? We mentioned via social media, a lot of things via social media tonight. One tweet from the mayor apparently saying this was sad, and apparently that is not from the mayor's actual account. We will continue to monitor that. We have touched base with her office and her spokesperson. We are waiting to hear a comment from them, along with so many others tonight. Everyone getting up to speed on this story for us.
I have been in touch with Lieutenant Governor Bob Duffy. Talked to him within the last half hour on the phone. He is being briefed on this, has been briefed by the state police. He's in Albany tonight. I think was down in New York City earlier. Maybe, and I would think will probably be here tomorrow. We are not sharing the name at this point, but Bob Duffy, our Lieutenant Governor, and myself agreeing on the name that we have received tonight, and it is most likely someone that he swore in when he was the Rochester Police Chief. So taking it very personally as well. We will hear more from the Lieutenant Governor, I'm sure, as our special coverage continues.
Yeah, we have reporters live on the scene at Hudson Avenue and RGH. We'll be back in a moment. And we continue to follow breaking news. A Rochester police officer shot in the line of duty tonight. 3 others were hurt. They were taken to Strong Memorial Hospital. 13 Wham's Patrice Walsh is live there now on the scene for the very latest on the situation there. Patrice?
A lot of police officers here. Of course, nobody's really confirming anything, Jenny. I'm here obviously for a personal reason and was wondering what was going on, obviously following everything that's happening here. I've overheard some conversations of obviously officers very upset when they learned the news just a short time ago, and it's just a difficult situation. Of course, that so many of us have been through this before with obviously Officer DePonzio, who at first they thought was not going to make it, but did pull through. But it's just bringing back, I think, a lot of very traumatic memories for a lot of police officers. And there's some officers guarding some rooms here. We're hearing that possibly 1 or 2, of the suspects.
Please, I'm going to interrupt you just a moment. Stand by. We'll get back to you. But Rachel Glazer has some updates for us from Hudson Avenue. Let's go right to her. Rachel, what have you got for us?
Hold on. The media staging area is just right up there. Rochester police officer just walked over to us, tears in his eyes, visibly upset, telling us that we will get an update from the chief sometime in the future. So you can see all of the officers out here really clearly visibly upset at the word that one of their fellow officers has passed away tonight, shot in the line of duty. So we're going to be waiting for information from the chief, but again, when we arrived on scene, you could tell the officers were very solemn, but now they have just hit the point where word's starting to spread. They're finding out that this police officer has passed away, and it's just really changed the mood from a little bit of a hope to total sadness out here tonight.
Rachel, do we get an indication that the police chief will address the media at that location sometime in the near future?
That's what it seems like right now. I mean, the scene has been here for a couple hours now. Nothing has really moved, so it sounds like it might be happening out here, but they really haven't given us a clear indication of time, because they said, we're still trying to sort through our feelings before we can really start talking about the facts of what happened out here tonight.
All right. Yeah, thank you. We will either join Jimmy Kimmel in progress or we will interrupt Jimmy Kimmel if we go to it. But I think at this point we're going to remain with this story, bring you the updates. Patrice Walsh, you still on the phone with us? We were talking to you a moment ago.
I am, Don.
Yeah, we didn't mean to interrupt you, but obviously bring us up to date on what's happening there.
That's fine. Yeah, this is a busy place tonight. Obviously busier by the events that happened today, and as I said, there's a lot of police officers inside, and we're hearing that one or possibly two suspects being treated here. Obviously, it's understandable why they would be at a different hospital if that is the case, Don. You know, we've seen this in other things, and we've heard about the lockdown, obviously, at General, which is routine. Obviously, anytime an officer is shot, that kind of procedure is in place, and this is just a busy place tonight for a lot of reasons, and I think this obviously adding to it, a lot of officers are here, and I was walking by a few of them a few minutes ago who were talking about this, and obviously it's hitting everybody.
All right, thank you, Patrice. We should point out that 3 people, in addition to the Rochester police officer, were shot on the scene tonight. We don't know of that group who was a suspect, who was possibly an innocent victim. Rachel had been hearing reports on the scene that at least one of those people shot tonight was, in fact, an innocent bystander. These are all details we are waiting to hear. Our focus for much of the night has been on the police officer who was gravely wounded in the line of duty and has since died about an hour ago, we did learn.
And he becomes tonight the 15th officer to die in the line of duty with the Rochester Police Department. One of those in an automobile accident, one drowned. That was scuba diver Ron Siver, I think his name was. Gunfire, shot and killed 8 officers, now 9 with the death tonight. If we look back, and people tend to look back, it was the last time we had in the city a Rochester police officer shot and killed was back in 1959. It was Patrolman Harold Shaw. He had discovered a burglary in progress, the old Ray Oil Company, which is over on Lake Avenue, not far from Lyle, over by Ambrose Street. He had radioed for backup. One of the officers arrived on the perimeter, established that perimeter. Gunfire erupted at the window where Officer Shaw was, and he was struck twice, once in the arm, once in the chest. He did return fire, but to succumb to his wounds at the scene. Just 37 years old, and that was back in 1959. So we have not had a police officer shot and killed in a long time, and it's going to be an adjustment for this community, certainly, as the night turns into morning. And
the details we are waiting to hear. The police chief, we are told, about to address reporters, visibly shaken with tears in his eyes, officers tonight, saying they hope to give us more information. We're going to continue to follow that for you and be back with the very latest.
All right. We continue now with our coverage of breaking news. A reminder, we will join Jimmy Kimmel in progress as soon as we get some more information here. One police officer, Rochester police officer, shot and killed in the city tonight. 3 others wounded. And as we pointed out, of those 3, we believe one of them is a suspect in this. We don't know what role the other 2 played.
The big question is how this happened, what led up to it, and just who is the officer who lost his life in the line of duty tonight. 13
near the building as this now turns into a vigil, a place to remember their fallen comrade. We're hearing that the police chief and the mayor may be inside the building, so we're hoping that if there are any updates, we certainly would hear from them just in a matter of time from this location. And of course, once we do know for sure that we are going to hear from them, we will bring that to you. We're also hearing from officers who are here, and we've heard from some inside that they are just in shock. Just can't believe this happened right now. So a very just a moment that really tugs on your heartstrings tonight. Not the news you want to be reporting tonight, and we will sit tight here throughout the night and pass along any updates.
All right, hey, thank you, Alexa. We do have a name which we are not using of the officer who was shot and killed tonight. that, I assume, will come from the police chief or the mayor as soon as they make that available. It would seem logical that they are at the hospital at this time. I'm sure the family and others have gathered there. The scene over in Hudson and Warsaw, I don't know if we can take a look at it. I know Rachel is off talking to some people there, but this is the scene in Hudson and Warsaw. Seems to have wound down a little bit. There was an active police presence there a while ago, leading to some speculation. Perhaps there were other suspects or shooters in the area. But as Rachel described, officers going through there with flashlights and lights, really kind of combing the area, police dogs as well. The sheriff's department helping out for a while, but I think they have left the scene as well. So that scene staying put for now, shifting now to Rochester General, where fellow officers are standing for one of their own. And shifting to where the police chief is, we are waiting to hear from him more about tonight's shooting and the officer who was killed. We'll continue to monitor the police chief's comments, and we'll be back in a moment. We continue to follow our breaking news from 9:30 tonight. A shooting on Hudson Avenue. A police officer shot in the line of duty. 3 others were also wounded. Rachel Glazer has been at the scene throughout the night, joins us now with the latest, and it seems to be winding down a little bit, although still quite a police presence there, Rachel.
Yeah, still a lot of police officers out here, and a commander came over not too long ago and advised us that the chief would be speaking to us at some point in the future, but you could just see the officer was visibly shaken. He had tears in his eyes. Lots of police officers upset out here tonight, and he said, you know, they don't know when the chief will be ready to talk. They're all kind of taking this time to grieve. Word of this officer's death has spread quickly throughout this scene, and even just throughout the community. We've heard from a lot of people who just can't believe that this has happened out here tonight. So still an active scene. Officers have been out here all night preserving the scene, really making sure to keep people away from the areas that have been blocked off out here. And we're waiting for information from the police. I can tell you, if you're not the chief or authorized by the chief, you can't talk to the media. We're not getting the facts that you guys are back there, but we're getting the emotions from the officers, and you can just see it written all over them. And you can see it when we showed up, and it's heartbreaking to see their reactions as the news of this officer's death broke in the last hour. All right. Thank you, Rachel. Those emotions, of course, we will share as our coverage continues throughout the day tomorrow as well. Our coverage right now is kind of waiting at this point to hear either from the Rochester Mayor, Lovely Warren, or from our police chief as to some of the circumstances. We have not yet identified the officer who died in this shooting tonight, but that, too, is something that the public is waiting to hear. Yeah, and we are monitoring the conditions as well of the 3 others that were reported to be wounded on the scene. They were being treated, as we heard from Patrice Walsh, at Strong Memorial Hospital. A lot still to be answered in this case. We're going to stay on it and continue to monitor it and come on the air with the very latest, as well as 13wham.com, to bring you the full details. We will join Jimmy Kimmel in progress, but we are staying right here for the next hour or so, and we'll bring you the updates as we hear them from the police chief, from the hospital as well. And our coverage of breaking news continues. We brought you, of course, at the top of the 10 o'clock news tonight, the word of a multiple shooting in the city in which a Rochester police officer lost his life tonight. He was shot at the line of duty, died about 11 o'clock on Wednesday evening. And we are awaiting a news conference. Should be underway in about 9 or 10 minutes from now with the police chief and the Rochester mayor. Those are the big questions tonight. Who is this officer, and what are the events that led up to the shooting that cost him his life in the line of duty? And 3 others were also wounded at this scene. 13 Wham's Rachel Glazer has been covering this story from us. This was the scene on Hudson Avenue near Warsaw Street just about 9:30 when shots rang out. Neighbors describing to us a chaotic scene. In fact, they could not count how many shots were fired at the scene of this crime. Rachel Glazer, if we have her now, has been reporting from the scene for us. Rachel's now at the hospital. What can you tell us about this story and how it unfolded tonight about 9:30? Well, Jenny, we got to the scene there on Hudson Avenue about 9:40, so about 10 minutes after the shooting. And when you pulled up, there were so many police cars, so many lights flashing that it was hard to see what was going on. It just stretched a good 5 or 6 blocks of Hudson Avenue. And at first, police officers weren't really telling us much. All they said is that it was really bad. Witnesses then started to give us some more information, and then of course police confirmed that an officer had been shot near the intersection of Hudson and Warsaw. So we went over to that intersection, and there we saw investigators going in and out of the home there, searching a home right on the corner and talking to the people that lived there and just setting up evidence tags. There were 9 shell casings that they had counted, so lots of shots rang out tonight. As you said, neighbors said they couldn't count how many shots were fired tonight. And now we're here at RGH. Different scene here, lots of police officers coming in. I would say just outside the emergency room, there are police cars lined up, parked all up and down the grass here, waiting to pay their respects. And of course, we are also waiting to hear from the mayor and the police chief to give us some more information about this shooting. So far, we have confirmed that the officer was shot and killed. He died here about an hour after the shooting. 3 others wounded, waiting on their conditions, but it's definitely been a long, rough night for the Rochester City Police Department. We saw officers out at the scene get emotional, and here tonight it's the same kind of mood, different setting for them, but it's been an upsetting night, and it's been tough to watch them react to the events as they've unfolded this evening.
Rachel, you had an emotional exchange with one of the officers as you spoke with him about the shooting after he received word that the police officer had died.
Yeah, they had a media staging area for us, so that's where all of the reporters had kind of gathered, and we were waiting to see if we were going to get any information. And shortly after we reported that the officer had passed away, a commander came over and just explained to us that we would hear from the police chief later, but he was really visibly shaken, tears in his eyes, and we saw that from lots of officers tonight. Even just when we arrived on the scene, you could tell that this was a different situation for them, definitely a more personal, emotional encounter for them tonight. And then when we got word that the officer had passed away, you could definitely see it on their faces, just how hurt and how painful this is. And at the same time, they were still out there manning that active scene. We left about midnight, and they were still out there, still lots of police officers there, as some have now started to trickle in here.
All right, Rachel, we will get back to you in just a couple of minutes as well. It is amazing in times like this. It's been 1959 since an officer was shot and killed. Obviously, we've had other shootings, and we'll touch on those. But the police community coming together. Mike Catalano was down at the public safety building earlier tonight, probably in the last 45 minutes, calling me when he got there, saying that there were number of police cars, not just Rochester police cars, Irondequoit police, Webster, other cars, other officers coming. The mayor and the chief were at the public safety building. As Mike described it, and he had a chance to look in there, there was about 100 police officers inside the public safety building, meeting with the chief, meeting with the mayor, talking with them, obviously just sharing the emotion. And I think it's probably important for the mayor and for the police chief to not deal with the media right away, but deal with their own. They have to, take care of the police community, the law enforcement community, and heal their wounds that are going to come as a result of this as well, the emotional wounds that are tied to this. So they did meet probably about 100 police officers or so from all over with the mayor and with the police chief, probably for about, as Mike could look, probably 10 to 15 minutes, just a short meeting to bring them up to speed. I think important for them to find out first what is going on. Then it was probably about a half hour, 35 minutes ago that the mayor and the police chief left the public safety building en route to Rochester General Hospital, where that news conference is going to be held in just a few minutes, giving us the answers we've been looking for all night.
Yeah.
How did it happen? What happened? And most importantly and sadly, who is the Rochester police officer who lost his life in the line of duty tonight?
Yeah, keep in mind that you had officers just beginning their shift tonight, the police chief briefing them about what happened. Imagine starting your shift and hearing this very sad news. We are getting reaction now from the president of the Rochester City Council, Loretta Scott, sending out a message saying City Council would like to offer their sincere condolences to the family of the officer that was killed tonight while on duty. Our community owes a debt of gratitude to this officer who ultimately gave gave his life protecting and serving our community. Her sentiments echoed by so many tonight on social media, weighing in and giving their praise and thanks to the Rochester Police Department for serving our community. And as you saw, evidence of that brotherhood very strong in our community, as we will see in the coming days as this officer is remembered for his work.
And one of the challenges really is we monitored social media tonight and held back because there was so much information out there, so many people contributing to the information flow, and until we, of course, can confirm all of that, we do not pass it along. We have had for some time the name of the officer who was shot and killed, but out of respect to the family, out of respect to the police department and the mayor, who I think will announce that shortly, we have not given that name, but it's a name that certainly is going to be remembered, along with the, well, now 15 Rochester police officers who, over the course of history, have been killed in the line of duty. So we await the news conference. That's going to be held at Rochester General Hospital. You're looking at some of the neighborhood shots there, and that's what we want to know too. Was it a traffic stop? Was it what led up to this that resulted in a multiple shooting incident that took the life of a Rochester police officer?
We do have a crew still on the scene, Hudson Avenue and Warsaw Street. Still a very active scene as police investigate just what happened in the moments leading up to the officer being shot, as well as 3 others. We don't want to forget about them. We are working to find out more about their conditions. We do know they were being treated at Strong Memorial Hospital tonight in a very secure area of the hospital.
It does appear that probably one of those, a suspect in this, given the police presence at Strong Hospital. Both hospitals, as you can understand, inconvenienced in some way with this. The Rochester General trying to maintain the normal flow of activity in and out of the emergency room, caring for patients, people who have family members in the hospital trying to gain access. So it really becomes a scene where people are very concerned. Is the hospital shut down? No, it is open, but obviously not perhaps as free to move around as you normally would.
And unfortunately, a familiar scene for police officers, Rochester General Hospital, typically the place that officers are taken, and it's a place that they have been to several times in the last few years. In fact, this is the 5th member of the Rochester Police Department shot in the last 6 years. You might remember, I think we have some video most recently, Sergeant Flamur Zenilovic was shot in June after a high-speed chase following the fatal shooting of 2 city men. And just this week, Ralph Strong was sentenced to life in prison for those shooting. Sergeant Zelenovic speaking at the sentencing, many officers applauding that very stiff sentence that Ralph Strong received following the shooting of the officer and the fatal shooting of 2 others. That sergeant will return to full duty very soon in the Rochester Police Department, but saying he was pleased that justice was served in this case.
Interesting, too, that he brought his children to the sentencing, and people may wonder, well, why would you do that? And he said, this, when we fail to realize this sometimes, this has impacted their lives, and they needed some closure to this. Your father is shot in the line of duty. You don't know what the ultimate result is going to be from that. So they followed it through, and I think when he thought it was appropriate, Flamur Zenilovic taking his children, family to the sentencing so they could at least see who was responsible, that person is going to be put away for a long time. What, 2 life sentences plus 50 years. So there's no way that he will ever be out of prison until he dies.
We can go back a few years earlier in 2009 in December. Speaking of officers that were shot, officers Daniel Brochure and Luca Martini were shot on Driving Park Avenue. The gunman, Nixon Elion, and his accomplice Marquis Parker were both convicted in that case. Those officers suffered wounds that kept them off duty for some time. Of course, that was caught on a surveillance camera inside the apartment where the shooting happened. You can see the officers there in the corner of your screen.
And not long before that, 2009, and as I was talking to Lieutenant Governor Bob Duffy tonight, he's saying the shooting tonight, just a matter of blocks really away from where Anthony DePonzio was shot. He was shot in the head. That was on Dayton Street. We have followed his progress over the years now. He has returned to desk duty. Taekwon Rivera, who was 14 at the time, convicted of attempted murder in that case. And Anthony DePonzio now back on the job at the Rochester Police Department.
For folks joining us and staying tuned to this continuing story that began about 9:30 tonight, we want to remind you we are back on the air at this hour because we are awaiting a news conference held by the police chief in the Rochester Police Department and Rochester Mayor Lovely Warren. This is the scene right now in Rochester General Hospital on the second floor as we await this news conference. As we do know, the police chief and mayor briefed rank and file members of the police department and other departments in the area who came to the public safety building tonight to pay their respects to the force. Very, very sad evening. Tears in the eyes of many officers as they received the news of this officer killed in the line of duty. 13 Wham's Rachel Glazer has been covering this for us all night.
She's been out of the scene. She's at the hospital now, but obviously over at Hudson near Warsaw Street earlier this evening. And obviously we're waiting for more details, but I think probably most of your observations tonight, Rachel, were the police officers who showed up and kind of following that initial wave when they arrive. They're not sure what's happening, and then somehow sometime during that ordeal, finding out that one of their comrades has fallen in the line of duty.
Yeah, Don, we actually had heard over the scanners that an officer was down, and that's when we started to make our way over to Hudson Avenue. So, you know, we were on scene pretty quick, just behind the sheriff's office, and they kind of created a barrier. It went Rochester Police, Sheriff's Office, and then, you know, that's where they were keeping the general public. And you could tell when you got on scene that this was definitely a different feeling for everyone there. The officers were very stoic and solemn, and you know, typically we get information maybe a little bit quicker. They're a little bit more open about what was going on, but there just wasn't a lot of talking. You could see on their faces that they were having a tough time and thinking about their fellow officer, this brother. You know, we've talked about the brotherhood that police officers have, and then still manning this scene, a very active scene, preserving the evidence, taking photos, all the while, you know, that they were thinking about their fellow police officer who was then taken here to Rochester General Hospital, where he later passed away.
Obviously a very large police presence. There was still a large police presence over at Hudson Avenue. Again, an active scene throughout the evening. And Rachel, as we know, they were looking for a while, or appeared to be looking for perhaps some other people involved. So what we really don't know yet, we know that the 3 others have been shot in addition to the officer. One suspect we believe is being treated, but we really don't know if there are other suspects or those that they were looking for. It seemed to be what the police were doing at one point when you were observing.
Right, and that was something that witnesses and people in the area really had no idea about either. Is the circumstances that led up to this shooting, no one really was sure. We do know that it happened around 9:30 at Hudson and Warsaw Avenue, and we walked down that way and we saw investigators going to a house on the corner there. They spent a lot of time in that area, detectives, investigators going through there. That's where they were tagging evidence, and neighbors said that they had heard the gunshots ring out, and they described it as a gunfight because there were so many shots fired, just one after the other, that they lost count as to how many were actually fired. But we do know this Rochester police officer was hit at least once in the head, and then those 3 other people were shot. So there's still a lot of questions, and you know, we talked about the emotional toll that this is taking on the police, and they said, you know, we have to process this. We have to figure out our feelings and our emotions before we start talking about the facts of the case, and that's kind of what we are waiting for them to do here now in the next few minutes. But we're seeing some police come in, we're seeing some leave. People came into the hospital to pay their respects, and now they are headed right back out to start their shifts tonight. So you can only imagine what the police officers are going through tonight, and as well as the families of the 3 others who were shot.
Absolutely. We do know that a lot of off-duty officers are also arriving at the hospital, if they may, and attending this news conference to hear for themselves what happened. We have a live camera on the podium at Rochester General Hospital. In the back of this room, there are officers that have filed in, many on their own time, some completing their shifts tonight. Very emotional in the hospital as they wait to hear the details of the shooting that left a police officer dead tonight. trying to sort out, as Rachel said, their own feelings, mourn his passing, and learn more information.
All of the answers we have been looking for throughout the night, at least most of them, will come from that podium in the next few minutes. Just to take you back, obviously Rachel was talking about the scene over in Hudson Avenue tonight, and from there really are three elements that have kind of emerged from there. Obviously the active shooting scene, that's at Hudson Avenue over by Warsaw Street. From there, of course, the two hospitals, Strong Hospital, Patrice Walsh reported from us earlier, a very large police presence there as well. Is believed that one of the suspects in that shooting was taken there for treatment. Rochester General Hospital, you're looking at those pictures now. And of course, that one of the active scenes. The mayor and the police chief approaching the podium now at the hospital. So let's go there and see what we can find out.
It is with a sad and a heavy heart that I come before you to announce that tonight we lost one of our own. A police officer who gave his life in the line of duty, who made the ultimate sacrifice protecting the people of the city of Rochester. Our preliminary information is this, and I stress that this is preliminary and subject to change. The incident occurred at about 9:25 p.m. in the vicinity of Hudson and Warsaw in the city of Rochester. Our preliminary information is that there was a pursuit of an individual, that in the course of this pursuit there was an exchange of gunfire. During this exchange of gunfire, our officer received a fatal wound. The suspect was also shot and wounded and is currently in surgery. There are no additional suspects outstanding. In addition, an innocent bystander received a gunshot wound, and we are informed that this injury is not life-threatening. At this point, there is no additional information that I can release, and the investigation is ongoing. We will not be releasing the name of the officer at this point until we can ensure that all the members of his family have been properly notified. We will be in a position to release more information tomorrow, and we will let you know when we can do that. On behalf of all the men and women of the Rochester Police Department, I want to express our deepest condolences to the officer's family. We and the Rochester community have lost someone very important to all of us. We ask for your prayers and your support during this very difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Words simply cannot express the sense of sorrow and deep loss that we feel at this moment. A family has lost a loved one. The men and women of our police department have lost a family member and a friend. And we, the people of Rochester, have lost someone who, like every other RPD officer, put their life on the line day after day for us. I ask that everyone join me and the citizens of Rochester in keeping the family and all of our officers in your prayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
At this time, we will not be taking...
You were watching a live briefing, a very brief but heartfelt briefing with the city police chief and the mayor asking for prayers for the officer's family. They would not release his name until they were sure that all members of his family were notified about his passing tonight. Yeah, we will not know the name of the officer until the morning, but some of the questions that we've had throughout the night were answered to some degree. It was about 9:25 this evening that officers responded over at Hudson and Warsaw. The chief telling us they were pursuing an individual. During that pursuit, there was an exchange of gunfire. During that exchange of gunfire, the officer received a fatal wound. The suspect was also wounded and is undergoing surgery at this hour. Also, an innocent bystander was wounded. We didn't find out who that was. We've had varying reports on the age of that innocent bystander, but that was not released in this incident. And no other suspects, if I heard the chief correctly. No other suspects. does differ from our initial reporting.
Yeah, so we have
that would
three
be
total,
two others shot, plus the officer, for a total of 3 shot this evening on Hudson Avenue. The suspect in surgery, no name on him either. Innocent bystander was shot, but is expected to recover. We heard a lot of words about the ultimate sacrifice paid tonight by that officer, and paying tribute to the people who put their lives on the line every day to protect the city. And in this case, it cost him.
And I think the mayor's summing it up with 3 elements. Obviously talking about the words can't express that loss, but talking about a family, the family of this officer who has lost a loved one, the police family who have lost a comrade who died in the line of duty, and then finally the 3rd element of that, the community, which, as the mayor said, lost someone who has put their lives on the line, like all of our police officers, every day to help keep peace in the community. In this case, again, giving that ultimate sacrifice. The 15th officer in the Rochester Police Department to die in the line of duty, the 9th police officer by our calculations that have been shot and killed in the line of duty. And other questions that we've had tonight, who the officer is, what that pursuit was all about. Our questions are going to have to wait until tomorrow.
Yeah, we do expect to hear more from the police chief. Certainly a story we will continue to follow. You can stay tuned to 13 Wham News starting at 4:30 this morning. Our crew will be here, and of course always on 13wham.com as well. We'll continue to update the story, and thank you for staying tuned to us tonight as we briefed you on this developing news.
That is our report on the breaking news. We will have more in the morning, and of course more at 5, 6, and 11, and 10 tomorrow.
From your breaking news and weather authority, this is 13 Wham News This Morning in high definition.
It is with a sad and a heavy heart that I come before you to announce that tonight we lost one of our own.
A Rochester police officer killed in the line of duty last night, and we have live continuing coverage this morning. It is 4:30. It is Thursday, the 4th of September. I'm Doug Embledge.
And I'm Norma Holland. Adam Chodak and Hannah Welker are both standing by live with our top story this morning. We'll get to them in just a moment.
Our top story this morning. A Rochester police officer shot and killed in the line of duty.
It happened around 9:30 last night on Hudson Avenue near Warsaw Street on the city's northeast side. We're told the officer was chasing a suspect when shots were fired. Both the suspect and the officer were wounded. The officer was taken to Rochester General Hospital, where he died.
Adam Chodak is live at the Public Safety Building with more on what city leaders are saying about this morning. Adam?
Well, Doug, just a few hours after the shooting, Rochester Mayor Lovely Warren came here to the Public Safety Building, and she spoke with a large group of officers about the incident. She then went over to Rochester General Hospital just before 1:30 in the morning, and she joined Police Chief Mike Simonelli, and the two of them spoke to reporters. Again, this was just a few hours ago, just before 1:30. Both of them expressed their condolences for the officer's family and asked for prayers and support.
A police officer who gave his life in the line of duty, who made the ultimate sacrifice protecting the people of the city of Rochester.
Words simply cannot express the sense of sorrow and deep loss that we feel at this moment. A family has lost a loved one. The men and women of our police department have lost a family member and a friend. And we, the people of Rochester, have lost someone who, like every other RPD officer, put their life on a line day after day for us.
Now, the officer's name has not been released because police want a little bit of time to notify family and friends. We expect to learn more information about the officer and the shooting that took his life later this morning. We're going to go live now to Hannah Welker, who's at the scene.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Adam. We're going to turn to Hannah. She's on Hudson Avenue. That's near where the shooting took place. What's the scene like this morning? Is there still a lot to see there this morning?
Yeah, Doug, right now on Hudson Avenue, several police cars lining all the way from where they've blocked off Avenue D all the way down several blocks. Police officers still actively out here surveying the scene. Again, this is the first time in 55 years a Rochester police officer has been killed in the line of duty. Police briefed us overnight. They say the incident began as part of a police pursuit. During the chase, there was a shooting and the officer was fatally wounded. He was taken to Rochester General, where he was pronounced dead. The suspect was also injured in the shootout. He was taken to the hospital for surgery. Now, specific details on his wounds have not been released yet. A third person, an innocent bystander, was also shot, but is expected to recover. The name of the officer who died has not been released. We do expect to hear from more police later today. And as I've said, the police have blocked off to the public all the way from Avenue D, several blocks down on Hudson Avenue. Right now, reporting live for 13 Wham News, I'm Hannah Welker.
All right, so the police officer killed last night is the 5th member of the Rochester Police Department to be shot within the last 6 years. Putting this into perspective here, Sergeant Flamor Zanellovic, you'll recall, was shot last June after a high-speed chase days after a double homicide outside of a nightclub in the city. Officer Zanellovic is expected to return to police duty, full-time police duty, soon. The man who shot him and killed 2 others, Ralph Strong, was sentenced to life in prison on Tuesday.
Also of note, Rochester police officer Anthony DePonzio shot while on duty back in January of 2009. He was investigating a complaint of drug activity on Dayton Street when he was struck in the back of the head. Doctors say it was a miracle he survived. He has since returned to desk duty with the department. Taekwon Rivera was convicted of attempted murder. He was just 14 at the time, and I should say I saw Anthony DePonzio just last month with his fiancée. So he is going to be getting married very soon.
We've all enjoyed seeing his recovery through the years and his milestones. Again, let's recap our big story today. Around 9:30 last night, a Rochester police officer was chasing a suspect on Hudson Avenue near Warsaw Street. During the pursuit, there was a shootout in which both the police officer and the suspect were shot.
The officer was taken to Rochester General Hospital. He died there. The suspect was in surgery overnight. Details on his condition not released. And there was a third person shot at the scene. That person expected to be okay. Police are stressing that there are no other suspects or persons of interest being sought in this case. Again, we expect to learn more from police this morning. I want to put one thing in perspective. It has been since 1959 that a Rochester police officer was shot and killed in the line of duty. We have lost other officers along the way. One that I remember very well, Ron Siver, a police diver, drowned in the line of duty. We had other officers die of a heart attack while on the job and in car crashes and that kind of thing. So I just want to clarify that. But the last time a Rochester police officer was shot and killed in the line of duty was 1959.
All right. Well, we, of course, we're going to continue this story. It's going to change throughout the morning. We ask you to stay with us. We'll be back, of course, with more of today's top stories.
Breaking news alerts and your Weather Authority forecast with Doug Imblage, Norma Holland, Adam Chodek, Jennifer Johnson, and meteorologist Marty Snyder. This is 13 Wham News and High Definition, your breaking news and weather authority.
All right, welcome back. 4:49. We continue to follow that breaking news out of Rochester this morning regarding the fatal shooting of a Rochester police officer.
Yeah, Police Chief Michael Simonelli and Mayor Lovely Warren briefed us overnight on what happened. We now bring you that news conference in its entirety.
It is with a sad and a heavy heart that I come before you to announce that tonight we lost one of our own, a police officer who gave his life in the line of duty, who made the ultimate sacrifice protecting the people of the city of Rochester. Our preliminary information is this, and I stress that this is preliminary and subject to change. The incident occurred at about 9:25 p.m. in the vicinity of Hudson and Warsaw in the city of Rochester. Our preliminary information is that there was a pursuit of an individual, that in the course of this pursuit there was an exchange of gunfire. During this exchange of gunfire, our officer received a fatal wound. The suspect was also shot and wounded and is currently in surgery. There are no additional suspects outstanding. In addition, an innocent bystander received a gunshot wound, and we are informed that this injury is not life-threatening. At this point, there is no additional information that I can release, and the investigation is ongoing. We will not be releasing the name of the officer at this point until we can ensure that all the members of his family have been properly notified. We will be in a position to release more information tomorrow, and we will let you know when we can do that. On behalf of all the men and women of the Rochester Police Department, I want to express our deepest condolences to the officer's family. We and the Rochester community have lost someone very important to all of us. We ask for your prayers and your support during this very difficult time. Thank you. Mayor Warren.
Thank you, Chief. Words simply cannot express the sense of sorrow and deep loss that we feel at this moment. A family has lost a loved one. The men and women of our police department have lost a family member and a friend. And we, the people of Rochester, have lost someone who, like every other RPD officer, put their life on a line day after day for us. I ask that everyone join me and the citizens of Rochester in keeping the family and all of our officers in your prayers. Thank you.
Okay.
So that was the press conference in its entirety that happened late last night and early this morning. It was a press conference sort of updating what the latest was at that hour.
And they're promising some more information today. As you can understand, their first priority is to, well, their first priorities are to inform all the family members about this this officer's death, and to then go on to continue the investigation of exactly what happened. But we do expect an update from the Rochester Police Department sometime this morning, and when that happens, of course, we'll have it for you. We do have crews out live this morning to kind of reset the scene for you, let you know what is going on both at the Public Safety Building and out on Hudson Avenue. Yeah, there's still some officers down on Hudson Avenue, and we'll keep you up to date on this story. Marty joins us next for the WHAM warm-up. All right, welcome back, and this is our WHAM warm-up, and of course today we're discussing and talking all about the unfortunate shooting death of a Rochester police officer overnight. Yeah, it happened during a pursuit of a suspect. Gunfire was exchanged. The officer, whose name has not been released, was shot and later died at Rochester General Hospital. The suspect is being treated at Strong Memorial Hospital. A third person, said to be a bystander, was also shot and is expected to be okay. We've been talking a little bit about perspective on this. It has been since 1959 that a Rochester police officer was shot and killed in the line of duty. Other officers have died in the line of duty, drownings, heart attacks, vehicle accidents, that kind of thing, since that time. But this is the first time there has been a fatal shooting of a Rochester police officer in the line of duty since 1959, a long time ago. We've certainly covered the shootings of Rochester police officers, and throughout my career, I know your career, we can all recall these instances where there have been these shootings where officers have been in the hospital recovering, and we followed their recovery. I can remember, back in I think it was 1998, I believe, or 1999, there was a shooting of some officers up on North Street, actually. And then, of course, in more recent years, we've got, of course, Sergeant Flamor Zanelovic, who was shot last June after a high-speed chase. He is actually going back to work full-time relatively soon. But we also talked about Anthony DePonzio and his case, and I know you have, you know him well. We followed his recovery over the years and how he was doing. He was shot in the back of the head. His recovery was basically recovery was said to be a miracle. Yeah, he is back on working for the Rochester Police Department now. Has some lingering effects of the shooting, but has an amazingly great attitude. Loves his job still and loves his work. We are hearing from a whole bunch of people. City Council President Loretta Scott offering her condolences to the family of the officer. She says our community owes a debt of gratitude to this officer who ultimately gave his life protecting and serving our city. And then Maggie Brooks, the county executive, who is married to a former Rochester police officer, Bob Wiesner, says, with a heavy heart, I join our entire community in grieving the loss of the Rochester police officer who sacrificed his own life in the line of duty earlier this evening.
This shooting happened on near Warsaw Street and Hudson Avenue in the northeast side of Rochester, where there are officers there this morning. There's remaining a police presence. This happened just a few blocks away from where Officer DePonzio was shot back in 2009. Again, we offer this perspective, of course, as we continue to tell the story. Let's get started.
From your breaking news and weather authority, this is 13 Wham News This Morning in high definition.
It is with a sad and heavy heart that I come before you to announce that tonight we lost one of our own.
Rochester police officer shot and killed on duty last night. 2 others were injured. The investigation continues this morning. It is 5 o'clock. It is Thursday, September 4th. I'm Doug Embledge.
And I'm Norma Holland. Adam Chodak and Hannah Welker are both standing by live with our top story this morning. Adam at the Public Safety Building, Hannah Welker live at the scene. We'll get to them in just a minute. But first, we turn to meteorologist Marty Snyder for a look at that forecast this morning.
Yeah, today's going to be a very warm afternoon for us. Starting off right now, mostly in the 60s, a few areas down to near 60. But heading through the day, we're going to see a lot of sunshine. It's going to be a nice looking day. Temperatures rising to near 80 by noon. Highs in the mid 80s to even upper 80s. Even more heat for tomorrow. We'll check that part of the forecast in a moment.
Thank you, Marty. The investigation into the shooting death of a Rochester police officer is continuing at this hour. This is the first time in 55 years that a Rochester officer has been shot and killed in the line of duty. 2 others were injured in that shooting last night.
It happened around 9:30 on Hudson Avenue near Warsaw Street. Also shot a suspect and an innocent bystander. They are each expected to recover. Police briefed us overnight. Adam Chodak live from the Public Safety Building to tell us what city leaders are saying about this shooting this morning. Adam?
Good morning, Norma. Here at the PSB, there is still activity at this hour. This is where Rochester Mayor Lovely Warren came just after midnight to speak with a large group of officers. From here, she went over to Rochester General Hospital where the officer had been taken. She joined Police Chief Mike Simonelli there to speak with reporters. This was just before 1:30 in the morning. They both offered their condolences to the officer's family and asked for prayers and support.
A police officer who gave his life in the line of duty, who made the ultimate sacrifice protecting the people of the city of Rochester.
Words simply cannot express the sense of sorrow and deep loss that we feel at this moment. A family has lost a loved one. The men and women of our police department have lost a family member and a friend. And we, the people of Rochester, have lost someone who, like every other RPD officer, put their life on a line day after day for us.
Now, the officer's name is not being released at this time. Police want time to notify family and friends. Later this morning, we expect to learn more about the officer and the shooting that claimed his life. Reporting live from the Public Safety Building, Adam Chodak, 13 Wham News.
All right, again, that shooting happened just before 9:30. It was on Hudson Avenue near Warsaw Street. The officer killed and the suspect and one other person were injured.
Yeah, Hannah Welker joins us live from that scene this morning to recap what happened and tell us what's happening there at this hour. Hannah?
That's right, Norma. I'm live on Hudson Avenue right now. Police officers have blocked off all the way from Avenue D several blocks down the road to continue the investigation from last night. It's pretty quiet this morning after last night's shooting. The police officer and the suspect began firing at each other just before 9:30 last night on Hudson Avenue. And the officer was hit and taken to Rochester General Hospital where he died. The suspect and another victim, an innocent bystander, went to Strong Hospital. The suspect was in surgery early this morning. Specific details on his injuries or on those injuries have not been released. Now, the third person, an innocent bystander, is expected to be okay. Also to report, around 11 sources confirmed that the officer had died. His name is not being released. Police are still notifying friends and family. We do expect to hear from officers this morning, and for now they say they're not looking for any other suspects. We'll be here live all morning to give you the latest updates on this incident. For now, reporting live on Hudson Avenue, I'm Hannah Welker, 13 WAM News.
All right, thank you, Hannah. The police officer killed tonight is the 5th member of the Rochester Police Department to be shot within the last 6 years. Sergeant Flamor Zanelovic was shot last June after a high-speed chase days after a double homicide outside of a nightclub in the city. Sergeant Zanelovic is expected to return to full police duty soon. The man who shot him and killed 2 others, Ralph Strong, was sentenced to life in prison on Tuesday.
Rochester police officer Anthony DePonzio shot while on duty back in January of 2009. He was at the time investigating a complaint of drug activity on Dayton Street when he was shot in the back of the head. Doctors called it a miracle that he survived. He has since returned to desk duty with the department. Taekwon Rivera was convicted of attempted murder. He was just 14 years old at the time. We'll continue to bring any more details of the shooting, more information from the RPD when it becomes available. We'll have Adam and Hannah throughout the morning and the entire 13 WAM News team working on this story all day long.
Be sure to stay tuned. Of course, we'll have all of the latest for you on 13 WAM and on Fox Rochester all morning long. And, of course, the very latest on 13wham.com.
Recapping our top story this morning, the shooting death of a Rochester police officer that happened around 9:30 last night. The officer was said to be chasing a suspect on Hudson Avenue near Warsaw Street. During the pursuit, there was a shootout in which both the officer and suspect were shot. The officer taken to Rochester General Hospital where he died. The suspect was in surgery overnight. Details on his condition were not released. A third person was shot at the scene but is expected to be okay. Police also stressing this morning that there are no other suspects or persons of interest being sought in the case.
Well, we are, of course, hearing from so many of you this morning on social media to send messages to the Rochester Police Department and the family of the fallen officer. Here are some of your comments this morning. Allison writes, "This is so sad. Praying for his family. An officer came to work to protect and serve our city, and now he won't be able to return home to his family." Delana writes, "Thoughts and prayers go out to the family, friends, and the Rochester Police Department. Also prayers for the other people who were also shot at that same shooting." And Jeremy writes, "RIP, end of watch 9314. God bless you and your family. Not many know what police officers go through, placing their lives on the line each and every day to protect their community and their loved ones." While you read this, there are police officers out there right now risking their lives for you and me.
The investigation into the shooting death of a Rochester police officer continues this morning. It is the first shooting death of an officer in the line of duty in 55 years. 2 others were injured around 9:30 last night.
That's right. It happened on Hudson Avenue, and police, of course, let us know overnight. We've not yet received the name of the officer who was shot and killed. And as you can imagine, this is a story that is happening on many different fronts, including Hudson Avenue, where Hannah Welker joins us live this morning. She's joined by City Councilman Adam McFadden at the scene right now.
That's right, Norma. I'm live at Hudson Avenue, where it remains very active. Police still here blocking off several areas. But yes, I'm here with a Public Safety Committee Chair, Adam McFadden. Adam, tell us, how have the last 24 hours been for you? Who have you spoken to? Police officers, family? What's going through your mind?
It's a sad occasion. It's a tragedy. This community should be outraged that we have individuals in our community that don't mind taking the life of a police officer. And if they don't mind taking the life of a police officer, you can imagine that they wouldn't mind taking your life or mine.
And, what has been really the mood? Obviously very somber, but you said you've spoken to some police officers. What are they saying?
I think they're just ripped up about it. It's a sad occasion, and again, a tragedy for our community.
And as the Public Safety Committee Chair, what are you looking to, what do you want people to learn from this?
I think the first thing we have to do is do our due diligence so that the justice system can play its part. The second part of this is really to try to work on changing the mindsets of individuals in our community that don't value life. We can't legislate our way out of that. We just have people in our community that don't value life, and we need to work on that and identify those folks and get them resources so this doesn't continue to happen. This isn't just about a police officer dying. This is about human life. And, you know, no one should be killed.
And do you know anything about the suspect in this situation?
At this time, I can't say.
Right. And have you spoken to the mayor or police chief at all? You know, what's going through their mind?
Well, I was at the hospital with them last night, so I can tell you it's a very tough situation for them, and they'll have more information for the community later today.
We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Adam. We really do. And again, I'll be live here on Hudson Avenue all morning with more updates on last night's fatal shooting. Reporting live from Hudson Avenue, I'm Hannah Welker, 13 WIM News.
All right, thank you, Hannah.
We'll be right back.
It is with a sad and a heavy heart that I come before you to announce that tonight we lost one of our own.
A Rochester police officer shot and killed while on duty. 2 others were injured. The investigation continues this morning. We have been on this story all morning long, and we're going to keep you up to date as we continue through our morning rush this morning. All of our top stories. Hannah Welker and Adam Chodak both standing by with that top story. We'll get to them in just a minute.
All right, first a quick look at the weather forecast. So many kids going back to school again today. Beautiful day. Temperatures getting up into the mid to upper 80s and sunshine all day long. The investigation into the shooting death of a Rochester police officer continues at this hour. It's the first time in 55 years that a Rochester officer has been shot and killed in the line of duty. 2 others were injured in that shooting.
It happened around 9:30 last night on Hudson Avenue. Adam Chodak is live from the Public Safety Building this morning to tell us what leaders are saying. And, of course, Hannah Welker will join us live again. She's down on Hudson Avenue at the scene where police remain. Adam?
Well, Norma, just a few seconds ago, a woman came out of the Public Safety Building and finished lowering the flags just outside. So you have the American flag, the New York State flag. It is a solemn scene here outside of the PSB as officers try to handle the loss of one of their own. And it was here at the PSB that Mayor Lovely Warren, Rochester Mayor Lovely Warren, came just after midnight to meet with a large group of officers. And from here, she went over to Rochester General Hospital, where she joined Police Chief Mike Simonelli, and together the two spoke with reporters and briefed everybody on what happened. They also offered their condolences to the officer's family and asked for support and prayers from the community.
A police officer who gave his life in the line of duty, who made the ultimate sacrifice protecting the people of the city of Rochester.
Words simply cannot express the sense of sorrow and deep loss that we feel at this moment. A family has lost a loved one. The men and women of our police department have lost a family member and a friend. And we, the people of Rochester, have lost someone who, like every other RPD officer, put their life on a line day after day for us.
Former Rochester Police Chief and current Lieutenant Governor Bob Duffy tweeted out this morning that Rochester has lost a husband and a father. Beyond that, we don't know a whole lot about the officer. We don't even know his name at this point, and that's for good reason. Police want time to notify family and friends. Now, in just about an hour or two, we expect to learn more from Rochester Police about what happened and also about the officer who died. That should happen right here at the Public Safety Building. And it's tough, I have to tell you, for officers at this point, because unlike other people, when they lose someone special, they don't have the luxury of just mourning, of concentrating on their grief. They also have to figure out what happened around 9:30 on Hudson Avenue. There's an investigation. It's part of their job. It's what this fallen officer would be doing if he were put in a similar situation. It's just part of the job. Reporting live from Rochester, Adam Chodak, 13 WHAM News.
All right, Adam, thanks. The shooting, again, just after 9:30, just before 9:30 last night. It was Hudson Avenue near Warsaw Street, and the suspect injured was taken to Strong. The officer died at Rochester General. Then there was a third person, a bystander, who was injured and is said to be okay. Hannah Welker has been on the scene all morning, and she's there to tell us what's going on still at this hour.
Yeah, Doug, that's right. Still a really active scene right now. Rochester police have blocked off between Avenue D and Weaver Street here on Hudson Avenue, where this incident occurred last night. Now, I just spoke with Adam McFadden, the Public Safety Committee chairman for the Rochester City Council. He says he's spoken with some police officers, spoke to the mayor and the police chief last night. Very, very sad about what happened. A family is now without a father. He was at the hospital for hours last night, says it was a very sad scene. Everyone was very quietly mourning this situation. Something else to keep in mind, we are out here on Hudson Avenue where several children have just walked past with parents walking to school. They're basically walking through a crime scene on their way to school. Just something to keep in mind in this area as the police continue to investigate what happened last night. Another thing Adam McFadden says, if you know a police officer today, give them a big hug for your support and keep them in your prayers. Reporting live from Hudson Avenue, I'm Hannah Welker, 13 WHAM News.
All right, Hannah, thank you, painting a very stark contrast between what's going on and those kids who need to get to school today. The police officer killed is the 5th member of the Rochester Police Department to be shot in the last 6 years. Sergeant Flamur Zanelovic shot last June after a high-speed chase, days after a double homicide outside of a nightclub in the city. Sergeant Zanelovic is expected to return to full police duty soon. The man who shot him and killed 2 others, Ralph Strong Jr., was sentenced to life in prison on Tuesday.
Rochester police officer Anthony DePonzio was shot in the line of duty back in January of 2009 while investigating a complaint of drug activity. Doctors say it was a miracle he was able to survive that shooting in the back of his head. He has since returned to desk duty with the department. A 14-year-old, Taekwon Rivera, was convicted of attempted murder. We'll continue to bring more details on the shooting as they become available. Also, what we are learning about the suspect this morning. We'll be checking in with Adam and Hannah throughout the morning.
And if you can stay tuned to 13 WHAM and Fox Rochester all morning long and on social media and 13wham.com.
You're watching Fox Rochester.
From the 13 WHAM News Studios, this is Good Day Rochester.
For the next few hours and throughout this day, we will be following the new information coming in about the fatal shooting of a Rochester police officer last night. This is Good Day Rochester on Fox Rochester for Thursday, September 4th. I'm Doug Embledge.
And I'm Norma Holland. We have team coverage for you this morning. We've been on this story all evening long. Adam Chodak and Hannah Welker both live in Rochester. Adam live at the Public Safety Building. Hannah down on Hudson Avenue, where there remains an active scene this morning. They're gathering all the details, and we'll have all of that for you coming up. But first, meteorologist Marty Snyder here with a check on that forecast and what is the first day of school for thousands of students in our community.
Yeah, it looks like a pleasant day for kids heading out this morning. We're going to see quite a bit of sun for much of the day, starting off with most temperatures hovering somewhere in the very lower 60s. Will rise through the lower 60s throughout the earliest part of the day. Heading towards noon, still quite a bit of sun, maybe a couple scattered clouds. Temperatures rising to about 80 degrees at that point. And then through the afternoon, we'll keep quite a bit of sun around. A very summer-like day today. Temperatures today will range anywhere from the mid-80s to even upper 80s during the afternoon. So expect temperatures well above average for this time of year.
This morning, police continue to investigate the shooting death of a Rochester officer. It was the first time in 55 years that a Rochester officer has been shot and killed in the line of duty.
And 2 others were injured in that shooting. It happened around 9:30 last night on Hudson Avenue. Hannah Welker is live at the scene this morning to recap what happened and to tell us what's going on this morning. I know you just spoke to City Councilman Adam McFadden a short while ago. I guess she was saying he was telling folks if they see an officer to hug a police officer today.
That's right. I did speak with Adam McFadden just a few minutes ago. He said it's just a very, very sad scene among all of the Rochester police officers, whether you knew the officer that was killed or you didn't. He was at the hospital for several hours last night, spoke to the mayor. He says many of them just deeply sad and very quiet morning. I'm live right now on Hudson Avenue where they've blocked off Avenue D through Weaver Street as they continue the investigation on Hudson Avenue, where the incident happened last night. I'll give you a recap of exactly what happened last night. There was a shooting. There was shooting between a police officer and the suspect during a chase. Then an officer was fatally wounded. He was taken to Rochester General, where he was then pronounced dead. The suspect was also injured in the shooting. He was also taken to the hospital for surgery. Specific details on his injuries have not been released. A third person, an innocent bystander, was also shot, but is expected to be okay. The name of the officer has not been released. Police are still notifying family and friends. Now, I did talk to Adam McFadden. As you said, he encourages everyone to reach out to a police officer if they know one and to give them a hug.
If you know an officer, you should hug them and appreciate them, pray for them. When we send them out to do this tough job, that we expect them to come home safely the way that they went out to do the job.
That's right. Very good advice there. And I'll remain at the scene all throughout the morning to give you live updates as they become available to us. Live on Hudson Avenue, I'm Hannah Welker, Fox Rochester.
All right, Hannah, thank you.
The shooting happened just before, as Hannah said, 9:30 last night on Hudson near Warsaw, and police were briefing us about it all overnight. Adam Chodak live at the Public Safety Building to give us some of the reaction of other city leaders this morning.
Well, Doug, the sun is coming up on a very dark scene here at the Public Safety Building. Just a few minutes ago, a woman came out and lowered the flags outside of the building. So the American flag, the state flag, and the city flag, they are now at half staff. Right next to the flags, you see a memorial here that's going to take on much more meaning to many officers here in Rochester. It's in honor of the officers of the department who gave their lives in performance of their duty while serving this community. There are several names on that list, and this officer's name will unfortunately soon be added. It was here at the Public Safety Building that a huge group of officers gathered when Mayor Lovely Warren came in to talk with them. That was just after midnight. From here, she went over to Rochester General Hospital, where she joined Police Chief Mike Simonelli. They spoke with reporters there. This is where they briefed us on the basic details that we know this morning. They also offered condolences to the officers' family and friends. They then asked for this from us.
I ask that everyone join me and the citizens of Rochester in keeping the family and all of our officers in your prayers.
We in the Rochester community have lost someone very important to all of us. We ask for your prayers and your support during this very difficult time.
About an hour and a half ago, former Rochester Police Chief and current Lieutenant Governor Bob Duffy tweeted out that Rochester lost a husband and a father. Beyond that, we don't know a whole lot about the officer who died. We are hoping to.
All right, Adam, we're losing your microphone there, but I know what Adam was referring to there, in case you missed it, that Bob Duffy, the former Rochester mayor, the former Rochester police chief, now the lieutenant governor, did tweet out that this officer was a husband and a father. And now the next step is to learn what we can about the suspect who remains in the hospital this morning and the circumstances of what happened last night. The officer killed last night, actually the 5th member of the Rochester Police Department to be shot in the line of duty in the last 6 years. You might remember Sergeant Flummer Zanellovic. In the news again this week, he was shot last June after a high-speed chase after a double homicide outside a nightclub in the city. Zanellovic expected to be back on full police duty soon. The man who shot and killed shot him and then killed 2 others 2 days previous, Ralph Strong Jr., was sentenced to life in prison just this past Tuesday.
Also of note, Rochester police officer Anthony DePonzio, whom we covered so much when he was shot back in January of 2009. He was investigating a complaint of drug activity on Dayton Street, not far from where the shooting last night happened when he was hit in the back of the head. Doctors say it was a miracle that he survived. He has since returned to desk duty with the department. Meanwhile, the suspect, Taekwon Rivera, was convicted of attempted murder. He was just 14 at the time.
It happened around 9:30 last night. If you were just getting up this morning, perhaps you missed it all, but a Rochester police officer was chasing a suspect on Hudson Avenue near Warsaw Street. During that pursuit, there was a shootout. Both the officer and the suspect were shot. The officer was taken to Rochester General Hospital and died there. That's where many officers, not just from the RPD, I saw the chief deputy from the Monroe County Sheriff's Department, Drew Forsyth, there at the scene at the hospital last night where the officer died. The suspect was in surgery overnight at Strong Memorial Hospital. No details on his condition have been released yet. And then there's a third person who was shot at the scene but is expected to be okay. Police are stressing that there are no other suspects, no other persons of interest being sought in this case.
And of course, this is a story that is changing moment by moment. We're going to bring you any new details as they become available. We'll check in with Adam and Hannah, who have been live out all morning long. We'll also have the latest information on 13wham.com. We invite you to join us there and on social media on Facebook and Twitter. We'll be right back.
You're watching Fox Rochester.
From the 13 Wham News Studios, this is Good Day Rochester.
13 Wham News has learned this morning from sources that the suspect involved in the shooting, the fatal shooting of a Rochester police officer last night, was a 38-year-old Thomas Johnson.
We checked parole records and found that Johnson was released from prison less than 3 weeks ago. Records indicate he was doing time for a second-degree armed robbery.
Well, last night, a Rochester police officer whose name has not been released was shot and killed pursuing that suspect. Johnson was also shot and was in surgery overnight. There's no word on his condition. A third person, described by police as an innocent bystander, was also shot and is expected to recover. We're continuing to follow the latest breaking news on this. As we learn that this man was a parolee, it leads us to, of course, a crime just recently where a man just hours out of prison was arrested for a rape that happened near the Liberty Pole, and that caused quite a stir. No doubt this will as well, as we examine just the circumstances of his parole and where he had been since. Hannah Welker is live at the scene on Hudson Avenue recapping what happened, and I know you just got a chance to talk to somebody who's probably going to be very involved with helping officers recover from all this.
That's right, Doug. I recently spoke, just minutes ago, I spoke with a Rockford Police Department clergy pastor. Now, he lends his services to the Rockford Police Department any time of year, but especially in situations like this, when they've lost one of their own, he lends a kind word. He was speaking to some of the police officers here on the scene. Very, very sad, but just lending a kind word to tell them that it's going to be okay in any way that he can, really saying whatever he can do to help them in this healing process. The street still, Hudson Avenue still remains closed now between Dayton Street and Weaver. It's opened up between Dayton and Avenue D. I spoke with a police officer just a little bit ago, asked possibly when Hudson Avenue could reopen. He said he doesn't see it opening anytime soon. Investigators have been on the scene on and off this morning, really trying to investigate this case. But back to that Rockford Police Department clergy member, again, he's helping out the officers in any way he can. Here's what he had to say.
They're holding it in right now because they're facing the public, and you know it's hard to do your job when you got so much internal things going on inside. But that shows you how strong they really are and how determined they really are in doing their job. So I give them all the kudos in the world that they could still stand strong in spite of the circumstances.
Now, the Rochester Police Department and investigators still have a lot of work to do. As you can see, several police officers, several police cars lining Hudson Avenue here this morning. I'll be here live all throughout the morning with more updates as they become available. Live on Hudson Avenue, I'm Hannah Welker, Fox Rochester.
Stick with us for a second, Hannah, as we talk a little bit about that man you just interviewed, the pastor. Seems so prepared for the job that he will have to do today, and so supportive of the officers that he will most likely be asked to counsel. Been here before, although never quite in this situation.
That's right. You know, we asked, what is this situation like compared to other homicides you've dealt with, other investigations, and he said the difference is everything is kept inside on this issue. A lot of times when there's a death, you see a lot of families out on the scene, mourning the loss of a loved one. In this situation, it's all internal. It's all dealing with someone from the Rochester Police Department, part of their own family, and they're really holding strong, keeping in a lot of emotion because they still have to do a job for the community. They still have to investigate something that happened to one of their own. So it's so tough. It's so tough, the job that he has to do for these police officers.
And an important job, too. Tough and important. And there you see some of the RPD still on the scene this morning, trying to do what is really kind of the mundane kind of police work, securing a scene, rerouting school children on their way to class, that kind of thing, as they deal with the death of a man that they most likely knew quite well, perhaps acquainted with him at shift change on a regular basis, and realizing this morning just how dangerous their work can be.
A lot of officers on social media have been posting, officers whom we know who've posted saying this is the most difficult morning for them of their careers. And, we've been hearing all about, we've heard about police shootings in the past in your career during all these years. We've heard just 5 within the last 6 years alone. The most recent having been Sergeant Flamor Zanelovic, who was shot in the line of duty. He survived. He's going back to duty soon. So, we've heard those stories, but this is unprecedented for so many police officers. Because it's never happened while they've been officers.
Yeah, 1959.
55 years.
An officer was shot and killed in the line of duty. That was the last time a Rochester police officer was shot and killed in the line of duty. And through some of Norma's reporting this morning, she was able to confirm the name of the suspect. Thomas Johnson just got out of the Wyoming Correctional Facility back on the 11th of August. And it is believed, according to our sources, that that is the man who is suspected in the fatal shooting of this Rochester police officer. He also was shot and is being treated at Strong Memorial Hospital.
Yeah, of course, and there you see the suspect's name, 38 years old, and we're learning more about him this morning. And also, we hope to learn more later on about that police officer, the Rochester police officer who was shot and killed. We hope to get an update from the Rochester Police Department Chief Mike Simonelli, who spoke last night, has not spoken since. Adam Chodak is down at the Public Safety Building. I believe Patrice Walsh is down there as well. She is out there this morning, and so we'll bring you more information as soon as we get it.
All right, Marty's got the full forecast coming up.
Welcome back. We continue with our coverage of the Rochester police officer who was shot and killed in the line of duty this midday. We now know his name, and we have been hearing more about him. And at this point, the Rochester police chief not talking about the investigation as it pertains to this case. But if you're just joining us, we now know the name of that Rochester police officer who was shot and killed in the line of duty last night. He is 32-year-old Daryl Pierson. You see him in a photograph there. There is a fundraiser that is now set up for him, and we're going to get started with this story right now.
Heavy hearts today throughout the Rochester Police Department for sure. A man dies in the line of duty, the first Rochester police officer to die by gunfire since 1959.
That's right. He was a member of the Army National Guard who, with an exemplary record as an officer, according to the Rochester Police Department. We also know more about the suspect. The suspect in this fatal shooting, Thomas Johnson III, is in guarded condition at Strong Memorial Hospital. We checked parole records and found that Johnson was last released from prison less than 3 weeks ago. Records indicate he was doing time for a parole violation after having served 3 years for second-degree attempted robbery.
All right, the news conference with Mayor Lovely Warren and Police Chief Simonelli wrapping up just moments ago. We'll start our coverage, I guess, with 13 Wham's Adam Chodak to get the latest on what was said there.
Well, Doug, they couldn't paint a more tragic picture here. 32 years old, Daryl Pierson was an exemplary officer. He had many different accommodations to his name, including he was named Officer of the Month in 2010. They credit him with taking 10 illegal guns off the streets in his tenure, 8-year tenure here with the Rochester Police Department. They spoke very little of the night yesterday, but they did say that when the shooting took place, after right around the time that Officer Pierson was shot, his partner, who was there, Michael DePaula, also an exceptional police officer, according to the police chief, he returned fire, and he was the one who shot the suspect in this case. His name, of course, Thomas Johnson. We've been talking about him all morning, a recent parolee. He says that after Michael DePaula shot the suspect, other officers rushed in from all over, grabbed Officer Pierson, put them in the police car, and then took him right to Rochester General Hospital, where the police chief says the doctors tried valiantly to save his life. They tried, he said, to pull off a miracle that was not to be. And it was there at RGH that Officer Pierson, a father of young children, a husband, a much-respected citizen of East Rochester, died. The words coming from the mayor, from the Locust Club president, from the police chief, were overwhelming in their support of police officers in the community. Mayor Lovely Warren saying that this incident will not deter police. And Police Chief Simonelli picking up on that message, saying that they can't control how they feel right now. They can't train for this. They're devastated. The grief is overwhelming, but they will not stop. They will continue to work to preserve the peace in this city. We will have much more to come. We have coverage throughout the next half hour. We have a lot of information. We are going to toss it back to you now, and I believe Hannah has a report from Hudson Avenue where this all took place.
Yeah, that's right, Adam. As you can imagine, Hannah Welker's been down live at the scene all morning long, where she has seen a steady stream of people at the scene, including Rochester police officers. Children had to walk by that scene this morning on their way to school near Hudson Avenue, where that shooting happened. It's still taped off. And Hannah, what can you tell us, and what are you seeing at the scene at this hour?
Well, to put it in perspective, Norma, we've been here since 4:30 this morning, and the police presence is still heavy. You could see behind me on Hudson Avenue, police cars and police officers far down the street. Now, it's still blocked off between Roycroft Drive and Weaver Road down the street here on Hudson Avenue. And like you said, children had to walk through this crime scene to go to school this morning. Parents were walking them. A lot of police officers had to redirect a lot of people who didn't know exactly where to go due to last night's incident. It's still a crime scene, it's still an investigation. Now, District Attorney Sandra Doorley was just here a little bit ago, spoke very briefly, said this is a tragic day for everyone.
Thank you, Hannah. Hannah has been on Hudson Avenue since before 4:30 this morning. A lot has happened at that scene. It remains a crime scene as they investigate the fatal shooting of a Rochester police officer, Daryl Pierson. And we mentioned moments ago that a clearer image of the shooting suspect's background is emerging as we continue to uncover that information. 13 Wham's Jane Flash tells us what she has learned just in the last few hours. Jane?
Well, Doug, the photo we've been showing you all morning long is a 2003 arrest in Florida. But Thomas Johnson III has an extensive record here in Rochester dating back to a domestic violence in 2007. We've been going through about 50 pages worth of court documents this morning, including statements from the victim of his most recent crime. In 2010, Johnson robbed a 64-year-old man at gunpoint. That man telling police, quote, "He grabbed me from behind and put his arms around my neck. I tried to flip him. He said, I have a gun." Johnson stole $14 and 2 credit cards. He was charged with second-degree robbery with a firearm and 2 counts of grand larceny. But that case was pleaded down to just 1 charge of attempted robbery. He served 3 years when he was released in 2013. He did not check in with parole as was required. expired, so he was sent back to prison for a year on a parole violation, and that was when he was released on August 11th. We also know that he has been arrested for resisting arrest and for criminal contempt, and that he has violated his parole at least one other time in 2003 when he possessed a firearm. Convicted felons are not allowed to do that. And we're also learning a little bit more about what may have been a motive for the chase today. He apparently was in violation of his parole again, a third time. When he was released on the 11th, he checked in with the Salvation Army program. He stopped going to that program on the 15th. Now, the Salvation Army tells us they are not required to report that to anyone, but they did report that to parole. And at that time, he had forfeited his place in that program. But that is all that they know about this situation. So again, that could have been a motivating factor here. Sandra Dorley, the district attorney, was here a few minutes ago. She did not answer any questions, but that is certainly something we will ask her about. Reporting live from the scene, Jane Flash, 13 WHAM News.
All right, Jane, thank you. As you can imagine, the emotion regarding the news of the fallen officer spread across social media. Lieutenant Governor Bob Duffy, also Rochester's former mayor and police chief, expressed his concern on Twitter. He wrote, quote, "Please keep the officer's family and his fellow officers in your prayers. A family lost a husband and dad. The RPD lost a brother. Painful." And not long after that, he tweeted, quote, "For every Ferguson, there are hundreds of thousands of daily acts of bravery, sacrifice, kindness, service, and respect by police officers."
All right, to recap a little bit, an exchange of gunfire that played out last night around 9:30 on Hudson Avenue after officers made a traffic stop there at Hudson and Warsaw. Chief Simonelli says the officer was pursuing the suspect when the two exchanged fire. Both were hit. Officer Pierson died. Thomas Johnson III was injured. He's now in guarded condition. And one clarification on that, the police chief's press conference, they actually made it quite clear that Officer Pierson's partner also fired shots. I don't know if Officer Pierson did fire shots, but his partner did fire shots at the suspect. An innocent bystander was shot, is expected to be okay.
And you can imagine the police officer killed, Daryl Pierson, was from a tight-knit community, that community of East Rochester.
And that's where we turn to 13 WHAM's Cody Combs. Cody, I am guessing that a lot of people in East Rochester knew Daryl Pierson, maybe from the time he was a boy. And I'm guessing again that it is the talk of that town today.
It is, Doug. East Rochester is absolutely rocked. And as you said, prior to joining the RPD, many got to know Pierson very well right here in this community. He worked around here. In fact, just over my shoulder right here, you can see this is the grocery store where he worked, made ends meet essentially before joining the RPD on a full-time basis. We spoke with the manager and employees inside who worked with Pierson. Now, they thought that he may have been the one that passed away initially, but then, of course, when that was confirmed just moments ago, a lot of heavy hearts and some tears inside. The manager said that Pierson was a very amazing worker and even more amazing person who everyone looked forward to working with. They simply can't believe he's gone, they tell me. Now, also in East Rochester, as we always pointed out there, an online fundraiser already set up for his wife and children that are surviving. People already donating right now as we speak to that online fundraiser. And again, we're just scratching the surface here of all those people impacted by Pierson and all those who knew him well. We're going to be speaking with them throughout the day to see the kind of impact he had on this kind of community and the kind of man he was and how he will best be remembered. Again, that'll all be coming up at 5 and 6. Doug, Norma?
Cody, thank you.
Thanks, Cody. And one of the things we passed along already, but worth repeating, that officer had an older son, a 4-year-old son, his oldest son, who started kindergarten in East Rochester just yesterday.
Still ahead from midday, officers shot and killed in the line of duty, how often it has occurred, and why 2013 has given law enforcement members and their families, unlike today, the last year has given them some hope. As we head to a break, a reminder of the sacrifice police officers make on a daily basis. Flags are at half-staff at the Public Safety Building in honor of fallen officer Daryl Pierson. Continuing coverage when we come back.
If you know an officer, you should hug them and appreciate them, pray for them. When we send them out to do this tough job, that we expect them to come home safely the way that they went out to do the job.
That is City Councilman Adam McFadden this morning. A recap of our breaking news that we've been covering for the last 14 hours now. 32-year-old Daryl Pierson was the Rochester police officer killed by gunfire on Hudson Avenue last night. He leaves behind a wife and 2 children. The alleged shooter, 38-year-old Thomas Johnson III, records show that Johnson violated parole in 2003 and a second time in 2010 when he failed to check in with his parole officer after leaving prison. He served a year behind bars before being released again 3 weeks ago.
According to national statistics, a law enforcement advocacy group, in 2013, the number of police killed by gunfire dipped to its lowest number in under 25 years. Pierson is the 5th member of the Rochester Police Department to be shot in the last 6 years. And at this point, we'd like to turn now to Patrice Walsh, who joins us live from the scene this midday with the very latest on this case, as she has been down there along with Adam Chodak downtown and brings us the very latest. Patrice?
You know, we talked a little bit about the emotions involved here. The police union president, Mike Mazzio, who many of us have known for years, literally almost breaking down as he spoke of losing this young officer. The chief calling him a dedicated officer who had put his life on the line, the chief told us many times, taking 10 illegal weapons off the streets and always doing the best job possible. We also talked to his former boss, former police chief Jim Shepard, about this officer. He said he was a name that he knew many times, and it was always for good work.
Working policeman is really what he was. And, you know, I was just talking with some friends that, you know, a lot of times you could avoid being in that circumstance. You could see something and not take action, but he was one of those officers that was very proactive, very productive, went out there doing the best he could for his family. My heart is with them. My tears are with them.
A lot of emotion today. A lot of officers filled that room today. Many of them had worked with this fallen officer. We will have a briefing also later today to learn more about what happened, how this began with that traffic stop and ended with the foot chase and those shots that were fired, killing this dedicated officer. We'll learn much more coming up tonight at 5 and 6. Back to you guys.
Patrice, thank you for that. A very compelling sound from the former police chief. Also compelling words today from that press conference today at noon from Mayor Lovely Warren and Police Chief Michael Simonelli.
Yeah, they had a lot to say. Chief Simonelli focusing mostly on the officer, and Mayor Warren really looking ahead in terms of how the city responds to this kind of violence.
I ask the people of our community, the citizens of Rochester, to understand the great sacrifice that Officer Pierson made last night. He lost his life trying to protect and to serve. There are few incidents that change the course of a city, and I'm praying that this one pulls this community together, that we stand united in seeking justice, that we stand united in showing compassion to the men and women of our police department.
I will say this. Before this happened, the Rochester Police Department was out there doing its job and protecting the city. During this event, the Rochester Police Department was out there doing its job protecting the city. And now, the Rochester Police Department is out there protecting the city. We will not be deterred. We will not be stopped. We will honor our fallen comrade by making this a better city and a better community.
That's the police chief just less than an hour ago. Let's take a live look as we go to break here at the scene on Hudson Avenue, which has been a police scene since about 9:25 last night, a protected, guarded police scene. And we are told they are now just breaking down some of their equipment and perhaps opening the road again. We've got the weather forecast and continuing coverage of this story coming up next. And here is what it sounded like last night on Hudson Avenue and on the police scanners after the fatal shooting of Rochester police officer Daryl Pierson.
Fired 2125, suspect and officer down. 77. We need a rig. We need Hudson shut down at Cleon. We need Hudson at Roycroft shut down.
2244, Vinny, Hudson shut down completely.
10 for any rigs southbound from Hudson. And neutral, sir. For RFDs on scene. Started check for 969 Hudson. 969 Hudson.
All right, we're all several cars at the scene. As they're responding, just make sure you have crowd control. There's a huge crowd. We need more cars. Focus on crowd control.
Officers.
Stay tuned to 13 WHAM News as we continue our coverage of the fatal shooting of a Rochester police officer.
Yeah, we'll have more throughout the day on social media on 13wham.com, and then join us for 13 WHAM News at 5 and 6 this evening. We'll see you then.
Thirteen WHAM TV, your breaking news and weather authority.
8863, Warsaw and Hudson, shots fired, suspect down, officer down.
A Rochester police officer shot to death doing his job. His work family and his loved ones grieving.
I promise you that if you decide to pull that trigger, you will be held accountable.
From your breaking news and weather authority, this is 13 WHAM News at 5 in high definition.
We continue to follow that breaking news. Officer Daryl Pierson saw his 4-year-old son go off to kindergarten yesterday. Last night, he was killed.
And Pierson becoming the first member of the RPD shot to death in the line of duty since 1959.
8863, Warsaw and Hudson, shots fired, suspect down, officer down.
It was just before 9:30 last night on Hudson Avenue. Officer Pierson was pursuing a suspect when he was shot. His partner, Michael DePaula, returned fire, wounding the suspect. Other officers rushed Pierson to the hospital.
I will acknowledge now the absolute fury with which the personnel of Rochester General Emergency worked this case and tried to pull off a miracle, which was not to be.
The suspect, 38-year-old Thomas Johnson III, is being treated at Strong Memorial. He was released from prison just last month. Rochester's mayor says it is her hope this crime will pull our community together.
Our forthcoming efforts will be done with Officer Pierson, his wife, his children in the forefront of our mind, to ensure that justice is served and that he did not die in vain.
There is a news conference by police and the district attorney that is scheduled for 5:30 tonight.
Officer Pierson's widow, Amy, is expected to be there, and we will carry it live. Our continuing coverage now includes a detailed account of the shooting of the suspect. But first, how Officer Pierson's sister is remembering him.
And for that, we turn to 13 WHAM's Cody Combs, who's in Pierson's hometown of East Rochester. Cody?
Doug and Jenny, we sat down with those who probably know Pierson the best, members of his family. Just moments ago, I sat down with Pierson's sister, who told me about his life and legacy. She said back when Pierson first said he wanted to go into law enforcement, it's something that made her nervous. It's something that made the whole family nervous. But she said her brother never winced, never flinched, none of that. She says his passion and energy for the job overcame all those emotions. Take a listen.
He's always wanted to do it, and I've always asked him why there and where it's so, you know, the crime is so heavy, and, you know, the officers are at risk every day, and I know they're at risk everywhere. It just seems the crime is so much more there, and he always said, I love the action, and he did, and he died doing what he loved.
Now, Pierson's sister also told me she used to text him from time to time if she ever heard about something happening in the city late at night. This time, obviously, it did not end well at all, but we hear more from her coming up at 5:30 and 6. She has some very, very strong words for the suspect in all this. Stick around for that. Doug, Jenny?
All right, Cody, thanks. Now to those fast-moving moments, the pursuit, the shots fired, the apprehension of a suspect. 13 WHAM's Patrice Walsh continuing our coverage now from downtown at the Public Safety Building. Patrice?
And as you mentioned, we are expecting more information about how this shooting happened at a news conference in just about a half an hour. That will happen right here behind me. For now, though, what touched many of us was the emotion we saw, both from the sister of the officer and the officers, the police chief, the police union president today, breaking down at a news conference. It's clear this officer has touched many people. Officer Daryl Pierson was recognized for bravery and courage many times. Police say this isn't the first time he put his life on the line. His death in the line of duty hit the department hard.
Our heart is heavy. We've lost a brother. We're a close-knit family, and this is a difficult time for all of us.
Police say Pierson was pursuing a suspect in an incident that began as a traffic stop and ended with a foot chase. He was shot gravely, police say. His partner, Michael DePaula, returned fire, wounding the suspect and apprehending him. In the process, an innocent bystander was also shot.
Daryl's sacrifice is a reflection and a reminder of the dangers that all police officers face each and every day.
The police chief says despite efforts by doctors at Rochester General Hospital to pull off a miracle, they couldn't save the wounded officer.
Words cannot express the sadness and grief we all feel at the loss of our brother, Officer Daryl Pierson.
An 8-year veteran of the Rochester Police Department, honored numerous times, we're told, for bravery, courage, Officer of the Month. Many people thinking of him, remembering him tonight. And as I said, we're going to learn more just about what happened last night on Hudson Avenue, coming up in just about a half hour. For now, we're live downtown at the Public Safety Building. Patrice Walsh, 13 WHAM News.
All right, Patrice, thanks. Pierson's partner last night, 41-year-old Michael DePaula. DePaula returned fire and shot the suspect, Thomas Johnson. DePaula, also assigned to the tactical unit with Pierson, had 7 years on the force.
And the suspect, we can tell you today, is in guarded condition at Strong Memorial Hospital. That suspect, Thomas Johnson, has an extensive criminal history. He is 38 years old. 13 WHAM's Jane Flash has been looking into his criminal history and is live now with what she's learned. Jane?
Well, Jenny, Johnson was a convicted felon in Florida and not allowed to have a gun. His arrest record here in Rochester dates back to 2007. And in 2009, a Rochester police officer says Johnson pulled what looked like a revolver on him. We also tracked down the victim of a robbery a year later, who says Johnson had a gun then, too. Thomas Johnson III was charged with second-degree robbery with a firearm and 2 counts of grand larceny. The case was pleaded down to an attempted robbery. Jim Crass told us he testified to the grand jury, then never heard another word from prosecutors. The first he learned of the plea bargain was from us.
I don't know why they only charged him with attempted robbery when they knew full well that it was armed robbery. I was hoping they would, sentence him and he'd learn his lesson, but I never heard anything till today.
From Rochester's mayor, a promise.
This administration will not sit by and idly watch you wreak havoc on our city. We will utilize the tools available to us to ensure that justice is served and that you are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
After pleading guilty to the lesser charge, Johnson served 3 years. When he was released in 2013, he did not check in with parole, and he was sent back to prison for another year. He was released again August 11th. Now, cases are pleaded down for many reasons, including when the victim refuses to testify. That was not the case here. If Johnson was convicted of the original crimes, it is unclear whether he would have spent enough additional time in prison to ensure that he would still be behind bars. Johnson was released from prison August 11th, new at 5:30, where he has been since returning to Rochester. In the newsroom, I'm Jane Flash.
All right, Jane, thanks. And now listen to how this story evolved on police radios moments after the officer was shot.
8863, Warsaw and Hudson, shots fired, suspect down, officer down. We need a rig. We need Hudson shut down at Cleon. We need Hudson at Roycroft shut down. We got a large crowd gathering coming from the...
And at that scene, there was a third victim in the shooting, a 23-year-old man who was standing on the corner with his dog.
We did speak with the aunt of that victim, and she tells us he is out of the hospital recovering. We will have more on that coming up. And of course, we continue to monitor that news conference at 5:30 at the Public Safety Building downtown. I think we can share a little bit with what the aunt said to us today, the aunt of that surviving bystander who was shot. It happened at the corner of Hudson and Warsaw Street. She first heard the police tell the suspect, she says in her words, to stop. Then she saw him running in and out of cars. She was on the porch at the time. Her nephew was in the front yard, and his 2-year-old daughter was sitting on the porch. She says she saw the suspect turn around and shoot Officer Pierson. Then she says she heard a second shot and did not realize that shot hit her nephew.
I saw him go down, and then my boyfriend ran out and was like, "What are you guys doing? Get in here!" So he had grabbed the baby and the puppy already and ran in the house, and I was right behind him. And then we came back out after all the, well, when we got in the house, that's when he realized he was shot. He didn't know. He didn't know. He grabbed the baby, grabbed the puppy, and we all ran in the house. And we set the baby down, and then he's like, "Oh my God, I got shot." And I'm like, it didn't even click to me, like, where did that second bullet go, you know? And yeah, it was him. So I just held his leg until the ambulance got here, and then they took him to the hospital.
And we can tell you that bystander that witness to the shooting of Officer Pierson is doing okay. He's out of the hospital, but did not want to share his story, but did so through his aunt.
Yeah, our coverage of this continues through our 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock newscast tonight and on 13wham.com. Coming up at 5:30, live coverage of that press conference in which Officer Pierson's widow, Amy, is expected to attend. We have one other piece of breaking news we want to pass along right now. Comedian Joan Rivers has died. According to her daughter, Melissa, her mother died early this afternoon, surrounded by family and close friends. Rivers was hospitalized last week after going into cardiac arrest at a Manhattan doctor's office after a routine procedure. Since then, she'd been on life support. Joan Rivers was 81 years old, and coming up in a few minutes, a look back at her life and her trailblazing career.
And ahead, continuing coverage of the shooting of the Rochester police officer from his hometown, how Officer Daryl Pierson is being remembered.
New at 5:30 tonight, Badge of Honor, how law enforcement is coming together to remember Officer Pierson.
Words cannot express the sadness and grief we all feel at the loss of our brother, Officer Daryl Pierson. Daryl made the ultimate sacrifice by courageously giving his life, protecting the city of Rochester. During this difficult time, I know that the Rochester community will join together with us to honor our fallen comrade and to support his family.
The chief of the Rochester Police speaking today about the shooting death of one of his officers, Daryl Pierson.
From Rochester Police to Officer Pierson's hometown in East Rochester, all who knew him say Daryl Pierson always put others before himself. 13 Wham's Cody Combs spoke to Pierson's sister and friends in his hometown. Cody?
You know, this hometown of East Rochester has really been hit hard by this, and you can just feel it. It's difficult to run into somebody who didn't know Pierson here. In fact, just over my shoulder is the place where Pierson used to work, the local grocery store here. The manager did not wish to speak on camera, was simply too distraught, but she told me everyone looked forward to working with Pierson. Everybody thought he was very kind. In fact, I spoke with the meat manager here who actually started under the supervision of Pierson. He says the world lost a very, very good guy.
This was a really great guy. I worked with him the first day I worked here, and he was as pleasant and nice a person as you could ever want to meet. It was fun to work with. We're looking forward to being a police officer. So all in all, you know, just, you know, a good guy to be around, and I think he was like that to everybody that he met.
And flags at half-staff in East Rochester, flags at half-staff across the state because of this tragedy. Coming up, we talk with his sister, Pierson's sister, who says he will be missed a lot. She also has some strong, strong words for the suspect involved in all of this. Doug, Jenny?
All right, thanks, Cody.
Also spoke today to his former wrestling coach. Officer Pierson was a wrestler in high school. He was just too grieved to talk, but he did say that Daryl was destined to be a great husband and father and a pillar in his community. He said he always knew that he would serve somehow, just because of the way he was, the character of the man he became.
And his sister echoed that, and you know, I keep being struck by the fact that he put his kindergartner on the, you know, took his kindergartner to school yesterday for the first time, and that there's a newborn at home who's never going to know her dad.
It's so sad.
It really is. All right, still ahead, remembering Joan Rivers, the comedian, died today. We'll take a look back at her life and career.
But first, a change of season in store for Rochester. Glenn will let us know what's coming up.
There is some news today about former Bills quarterback Jim Kelly. He is reportedly cancer-free. Within the last hour, we learned Kelly's latest biopsies. Remember, we were waiting for those to be confirmed, that they came back negative. He had undergone a second set of tests to ensure that his sinus cancer was indeed gone after undergoing radiation earlier this year.
Some positive news.
That's good news.
And still ahead, new details on the shooting death of Officer Daryl Pierson in Rochester. We are waiting for a live update from police and expecting to hear from Officer Pierson's widow.
Also, the parolee accused of killing Officer Pierson when he was released from prison and what we have learned about his criminal background.
Coming up next, the shooting death of a Rochester police officer.
He'd stop and help anybody, you know. It didn't matter who you were.
How the family of Officer Daryl Pierson is remembering him.
We will utilize the tools available to us to ensure that justice is served.
Community outpouring how leaders and people are rallying around Officer Pierson and his family. And the badge of honor, what local law enforcement is doing following this tragedy.
As you know, this occurred Wednesday, September 3rd.
A news conference getting underway right now. Let's take it live. This is Chief Simonelli speaking.
P.m., RPD tactical officers stopped a vehicle. When they first observed the vehicle, it contained 2 people. However, when they stopped it, there was only 1 person in the vehicle. At about 9:20 p.m., Officer DePaula and Officer Pierson arrived as backup officers for this vehicle stop. At 9:22 p.m., Officer DePaula and Officer Pierson began to search the area for the second individual who had been observed in the vehicle. At this time, Officer DePaula was driving the vehicle and Officer Pierson was the passenger. At about 9:25 p.m., Officer DePaula and Officer Pierson observed an individual matching the description of the second occupant of the vehicle. Officer Pierson exited the police vehicle and approached the person who matched the description. This individual immediately fled on foot southbound on Hudson Avenue. Officer Pierson pursued this individual on foot while Officer DePaula turned the police vehicle around to assist in the pursuit. Officer Pierson caught up to the suspect at Hudson Avenue and Agnes Street. At that point, the suspect shot Officer Pierson 1 time with a .25 caliber handgun. This wound ultimately proved to be fatal. At that time, Officer Pierson and the suspect both fell to the ground. As they fell, the suspect's .25 caliber handgun discharged a second time. We believe the second shot from the suspect's handgun struck an innocent bystander, Jamal Bowler, 24 years of age, causing a serious but non-life-threatening injury. The suspect then got up and continued to flee on foot. By that time, Officer DePaula exited the police vehicle and pursued the suspect. As the suspect was running, he turned to fire his weapon at Officer DePaula. At that point, Officer DePaula then fired 1 round at the suspect with his RPD-issued handgun. Officer DePaula's shot struck the suspect, causing a non-life-threatening injury. Officer DePaula then apprehended the suspect. At about this point, other RPD officers arrived on the scene and then placed Officer Pierson in a police vehicle and transported him to Rochester General Hospital. Officer Pierson was pronounced by the Rochester General Medical Staff at 10:45 p.m. Both the suspect and Mr. Bowler were transported to Strong Memorial Hospital for treatment. Bowler was treated and released. The suspect underwent surgery at Strong Memorial Hospital and is currently admitted to the hospital under police guard. The suspect has been identified as Thomas Johnson III, a male, 38 years of age. We later determined that Mr. Johnson has an outstanding parole warrant. Now I'm going to turn this over to District Attorney Sandra Dorley.
Pierson, my heart goes out to you and your family. And as you can see around this room, you have a tremendous family in law enforcement, and they will be with you to support you throughout this entire process. At 4:51 p.m., a felony complaint was filed in Rochester City Court against Thomas Johnson III. There are 8 counts in the felony complaint. I will simply read them to you. The first count is aggravated murder, and that is in violation of Penal Law Section 125.26. The second count is attempted aggravated murder. The third, fourth, and fifth counts are 3 separate counts of assault in the first degree under 3 separate theories for the injuries sustained by Jamel Bowler. The last 3 counts are 3 separate counts of criminal possession of a weapon in the second and third degree. It is alleged during the crime that the defendant had an armed firearm which was defaced, and he had a prior conviction which prohibited him from having the firearm. After we proceed with this press conference today, we're going to go over to Strong Memorial Hospital, and Mr. Johnson is going to be arraigned on the felony complaint. At that point, I believe he will be entering a plea of not guilty. The matter will be set down for a preliminary hearing. It's the intention of the Monroe County Grand Jury, the Monroe County DA's office, to present this case to a Monroe County Grand Jury prior to the preliminary hearing date. I do have a copy of the felony complaint, and I will provide it to anyone in the media, but I'm going to do that only after Mr. Johnson has been arraigned at Strong Memorial Hospital. There's been an allegation that there are prior convictions, and I can tell you a little bit about Mr. Johnson. Again, his date of birth is 2/24/1976. His latest felony conviction was from 2001, and it was attempted robbery in the second degree, where he was sentenced to a 3-year term in the New York State Department of Corrections with 5 years post-release. When he was released on that sentence, we've learned that he was violated on parole. He was returned to the Department of Corrections and was since released to our community. His maximum expiration date, according to the Division of Parole, would have been December 23rd of 2018. He also has prior misdemeanors that occurred within Monroe County. But interestingly, from the state of Florida, he has a charge for battery on a police officer, and we are looking into that offense. Those are the charges that will be contained in the felony complaint, the 8 charges. That's a little bit about Mr. Johnson's history. And again, we'll be able to provide a felony complaint once he has been arraigned at Strong Memorial Hospital. And again, my heart goes out to the Pierson family, and again to the wonderful members of the Rochester law enforcement community. You know, the moment that this crime occurred last night, right after 9 o'clock, every member of law enforcement from throughout Monroe County was there to support the Rochester Police Department and provide whatever aid they could. And as a result, we have a suspect in custody, and we're going to be able to pursue this prosecution. I can tell you, as charged now in the felony complaint, if Mr. Johnson is convicted of each and every offense, he is looking at the possibility of life without parole. Thank you very much.
We continue to follow that news conference, and we'll bring you any new developments as they happen at that news conference. Of course, you heard from the police chief a moment ago describing pretty much moment by moment how the shooting happened and the pursuit by that suspect, a parolee, by officers, and then Sandra Dorley saying the criminal complaint against him. He will be arraigned, Mr. Johnson, from his hospital bed at Strong Memorial, where he is being treated for that single gunshot wound tonight.
And it was Officer Pierson working with a partner last night in the passenger seat as they began to pursue the suspect, and it was Officer Pierson who got out of the car while his partner, Officer DePaula, continued to use the car to continue that pursuit. And that's when it all went down in a matter of seconds, where the officer was shot and Officer DePaula returned fire and injured the suspect. The arraignment to take place at Strong Memorial Hospital in the coming hours.
And the chief saying that the innocent bystander was shot when Officer Pierson was taking down that suspect. The gun apparently accidentally discharged, striking the man. The man then fled, the suspect, Mr. Johnson, and that's when Officer DePaula began to pursue him. And according to the police chief, the suspect attempted to fire his weapon at Officer DePaula, and that's when the officer responded with gunfire, striking the suspect once and bringing him down ultimately and arresting him.
Let's go. We're going to go back to the press conference just for a second. They're into the question and answer period now, and we'll listen in to see if this is something we want to continue with.
I think if someone is sentenced to 3 years and that's what a judge issues, then that person should be serving every moment of those 3 years.
Two quick questions.
Yes.
Can you explain what the initial traffic stop was for?
In this particular case, I don't want to really go into the evidence or the investigation at this time. Yeah, at this point, I'm not going to answer that.
And the other person in the car, can you talk about what happened to that other person?
Again, it's still a pending investigation. Thank you.
Can you clarify if this was at least if this was a routine traffic stop, like violating any traffic, or were you looking for this particular individual?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not going to comment. Yeah. Yes, Gary.
Can you say what he had done while he was on parole now that he was being sought for? Was he being sought for something parole related now also?
The information that we have right now, there was a warrant out as being a parole absconder, which means he wasn't reporting back to parole and wasn't where he should have been.
And just backing up to the earlier armed robbery, and I may be wrong, but did he have a gun, or did he actually he had his hand in his pocket, and when he was chased down, there was no gun?
The allegation was that he displays what appears to be, reading the paperwork, it does appear that he may have had his hand mimicking a gun in his pocket. A gun was not found or recovered during that 2011 investigation.
Was a gun found and recovered at the scene last night?
Yes, we recovered a .25 caliber handgun at the scene. Casings, at the time the gun was recovered, it was still loaded with live rounds.
Can you talk about how many?
No.
Was it a legal handgun?
Well, as I can say this, as a convicted felon, he could not legally possess a handgun in the state of New York.
Chief, we saw investigators search the house in the corner of Warsaw and Hudson. Can you tell us the significance of that home there?
I'm not going to comment on that now.
Chief, did the suspect fire at both officers? Did he fire first before officer returned fire?
Well, at this point, we believe 2 shots were fired from the suspect's .25 caliber handgun. The first shot struck Officer Pierson. We believe the second shot struck the innocent bystander.
Chief, did Officer Pierson ever fire a shot?
Officer Pierson never had the opportunity to draw his weapon and did not fire a shot.
But even after the second shot, the first one hit Officer Pierson, that's when his partner shot.
Well, within seconds, as I said, both Officer Pierson and the suspect fell to the ground after the first shot. As they fell to the ground, the second shot was discharged. The suspect got up and continued to run, attempting to flee. By that point, Officer DePaula had exited his vehicle and began to pursue on foot. Yes. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Officer DePaula shot.
Officer DePaula fired 1 shot at the suspect, striking him, causing non-life-threatening injuries, at which point Officer DePaula was able to take him into custody. Yes, sir.
Coming back to the earlier shot, so you said he dropped the gun, or he fell with the gun and it discharged?
Didn't say he dropped the gun.
Right. He fell with the gun and discharged my body.
Yes.
Were they close, or was that just falling because they were in pursuit, or what?
I'm not going to speculate as to why they fell. Based on the evidence we have, we believe both Officer Pierson and Officer Pierson and the suspect fell to the ground after the first shot was discharged.
Do you know how close they were when the suspect fired the first shot at all?
They were in close proximity.
Are you able to say where Officer Pierson was hit?
I'm not going to comment on that.
It looks like the suspect was hit?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Chief, there's an outstanding amount of support here. I know you're trying to get them from across the country. Can you go into what happens next, what kind of support you have, and what's the police manager go for?
Well, of course, our primary concern and focus now is for Amy and her family and Officer Pierson's loved ones. So we will do everything we can to support them, to help them, to be with them. We will take care of our own police officer family in this law enforcement community. We will be in the process of making plans to go forward to give this hero a fitting service as befits his courageous act of sacrifice. So I know you're all interested in that. As you can imagine, we've been very much focused on this investigation and bringing it to a successful conclusion. We still have much work to do on the investigation. The District Attorney's Office, who has been with us side by side here, has much work to do. But really, as we leave now, a number of us on the command staff will be now going to starting to focus on what comes next, and we will get that information out.
Will some of that, Chief, include review in terms of seeing what can be done to make sure that this does not happen again the next time the incident arises?
And anytime we have a critical incident, when the investigation is done and the facts are in, we always review it. We will do an after-action review. We will look at this situation from beginning to end. And if there's any lessons to be learned from that, we will learn them, and we will incorporate that into our policies and training.
Can you discuss, obviously this man was working under you. Can you express your feelings and tell us what's going through your mind right now?
Well, this is a day that no chief ever wants to face. And right now my job is to stay focused on my job, to lead this department, this wonderful department, and these wonderful police officers, and forward to do what we have to do. So I'll have time for some personal reflection later.
Chief, this is the second time in just a couple weeks that we've had someone on parole commit a violent crime in Rochester. Is there something that needs to be done here? Is there a breakdown in the system?
Well, I think the mayor addressed that earlier. Certainly, I think what you just said speaks for itself and bears some very close scrutiny. Okay, thank you very much.
The woman you saw when the camera panned over just a few seconds ago is Amy Pierson. That is the officer's widow. She did not speak at this press conference. The fact that she was there is rather extraordinary in my mind.
And I spoke to her sister-in-law, Officer Pierson's sister, a few moments ago before we went on the air, and she too was amazed that her sister-in-law was able to compose herself and speak about it. But she said, quite frankly, we're all in shock. We're kind of on automatic pilot at this point, but we do want to share with the community what Officer Pierson was about, what he meant to us. And she said, we are simply trying to move forward on that note. We hope to speak with her as well, but want to respect her privacy.
Sure.
They've been married 10 years, the parents of a 4-year-old who is just off to kindergarten, and a newborn, a 3-month-old.
And sometimes we find that people in these kinds of situations do want to tell us about their loved one, and so we'll continue our coverage after this. Stay with us.
Again, continuing our coverage of the shooting death of Officer Daryl Pierson. He was 32 years old, an 8-year veteran with Rochester Police, the father of a 4-year-old and a 3-month-old.
He's being remembered as one who always went above and beyond the call, always wanted to help. We are continuing our team coverage of the shooting. 13 Web's Cody Combs joins us again. I know it's just over an hour and a half ago or so you spoke with his sister. Cody?
Yeah, the entire family actually spoke with, but the sister one-on-one. The family's grieving. They haven't quite come to terms with this. They can't seem to grasp the finality of it all, and that's quite understandable. But the sister spoke with me about Pierson's life and legacy. Now she lives in Wayne County. She says she first got the call last night about the shooting. She was escorted by Wayne County sheriffs to the hospital. A very, very nervous ride, though. She said she was very optimistic with hopes that they could save her brother. Unfortunately, when they got there, her brother had passed away. She did, however, say that he was surrounded by a lot of police officers who cared a lot for her brother.
I've always worried. You know, you hear on the news, you know, shootings, and the first thing I do is I text him. I'm like, are you okay? And, you know, and he's always like, yep, I'm fine. I'm good. You know, don't worry. I'll always be fine, you know. And yesterday was his first day back to work. He had been out from an injury from the job, and yesterday was his first day back and his last.
Now, his sister also tells me she blames a badly broken parole system for all of this, and she hopes to address that very, very soon. Hear more about her plan to address that coming up at 6 o'clock.
All right, Cody, hard to believe it was his first day back after leave from an injury, and it ended in that way.
Some of the powerful sounds and images of this day and last night coming up next.
Tomorrow morning on 13 Wham and Fox Rochester, join us as we follow the continuing investigation into the fatal shooting of Rochester police officer Daryl Pierson.
Tomorrow on 13 Wham News This Morning in high definition.
Don leads our continuing coverage next on 13 Wham News at 6.
But first, some of the images and some of the sounds of last night and today.
8863, Warsaw and Hudson, shots fired, suspect down, officer down.
At about now.
From your breaking news and weather authority, this is 13 Wham News at 6 in high definition.
He lost his life trying to protect and to serve. There are few incidents that change the course of a city, and I'm praying that this one pulls this community together.
Changing the course of a city, a husband, a father of two, an 8-year veteran of the Rochester Police Force, shot and killed in the line of duty. Good evening. Officer Daryl Pierson, just 32 years old, died doing his job. He was shot pursuing a suspect on Hudson Avenue about 9:30 last night. His partner returned fire, wounding that suspect. Other officers then rushed Pierson to the hospital in a squad car. Throughout this broadcast tonight, we will be hearing from the family and the friends. We're going to be joining Patrice Walsh, Cody Combs, and others. As we look back on the life of Officer Pierson, we have team coverage. First, though, we're going to go to Patrice Walsh. A news conference wrapped up just a few moments ago, Patrice, and I know a very emotional one as his family was there.
His wife was indeed there. The district attorney talked to her as the press conference started. We learned that the officer was shot one time and never had a chance to fire his gun, the police chief calling him a hero tonight. We also learned the suspect, Thomas Johnson III, will be arraigned on aggravated murder charges within the hour at Strong Hospital. Here's the district attorney.
My heart goes out to the Pierson family and again to the wonderful members of the Rochester law enforcement community. You know, the moment that this crime occurred last night, right after 9 o'clock, every member of law enforcement from throughout Monroe County was there to support the Rochester Police Department and provide whatever aid they could. And as a result, we have a suspect in custody.
Was shot and killed pursuing a suspect.
The call for an officer down brought a quick and large response from police to the scene. Other officers picked up Daryl Pierson and rushed him to the hospital.
Other officers carried him and got him in a car and got him to Rochester General as quickly as they could.
Daryl Pierson's partner, Officer Michael DePaula, returned fire, wounding the suspect. At Rochester General Hospital, officers gathered to pray and support one another.
I will acknowledge now the absolute fury with which the personnel of Rochester General Emergency worked this case and tried to pull off a miracle, which was not to be.
Pierson's death in the line of duty brought fellow police officers and the president of the police union to tears.
Our heart is heavy. We've lost a brother.
Officer Daryl Pierson had been honored many times for bravery and courage.
This officer put his life on the line many times.
Those who knew him say he gave his life for his job and did not go home to his family.
For his family, my heart is with them. My tears are with them. Or his peers, the people that he worked with on a daily basis, I know their hearts are broken. At the end of the day, we still have to go out there and make the city safe, and I'm going to ask them to continue to do that, and we'll get through this.
And we also learned at the news conference the innocent bystander was shot by the suspect's gun when that suspect in Pierson fell to the ground after the suspect shot Pierson. The police chief tonight calling this officer a hero and saying he will be honored by this department. Reporting live at the Public Safety Building, Patrice Walsh, 13 Web News.
All right, hey, thank you, Patrice. You mentioned the family was there. Officer Pierson is survived by his wife and 2 children. I think any parent will always remember the day you send your first child off to kindergarten. Officer Pierson did that yesterday, the first day of kindergarten for his son in East Rochester. His daughter born just a few months ago. 13 WAM's Cody Combs spoke to Pierson's sister, who says obviously this family is heartbroken. Cody?
Don, Pierson's sister is overwhelmed by the sheer amount of support from Western New York. She says even though there's been all this support, even though there's been all these kind words, it can't possibly bring back the life of her brother. And now that's where her attention is turned. She says she thinks the reason behind all of this is a badly broken prison and parole system. And she wanted to speak directly to the suspect accused of doing this because she says that he doesn't quite understand exactly what he did or the life he took.
The message I have to this person is, you know, obviously he's 38 years old. You just senselessly killed my brother for no reason, none whatsoever. He did nothing to anybody. He was the kindest, gentlest person you'll ever know. And you took a father from his young children. They'll never ever know him. And it's just, you know, I'm angry, but I can't focus my energy on that person. You know, that person obviously has chosen his life, and, you know, hopefully the justice system prevails and he gets what he deserves.
Pierson's sister is already talking about starting a fund for the family, of course, his wife and children. As for the justice system, you can bet we'll be staying on top of that as that process continues to unfold. Don?
All right, hey, thank you, Cody. Can't help but notice the flag at half-staff behind Cody. We'll tell you more about that later, but a lot of flags flying at half-staff today in memory of Officer Pierson. Now we turn our attention to the suspect in this fatal shooting, 38-year-old Thomas Johnson III. He is in guarded condition at Strong Hospital, has an extensive criminal history. In fact, he's going to be arraigned in his hospital room very shortly as the district attorney and others go over there to have him answer to the charges. Now, the victim of one of his past crimes wants to know why his case was never prosecuted. Jane Flash tracked him down, joins us now in the newsroom with more on that. Jane?
Well, Don, Johnson has felony convictions in Florida, including battery of a police officer and an extensive arrest record in Rochester dating back to 2007. Yet in 2010, he was offered a plea bargain. The victim of that crime wants to know why.
I guess I was just lucky he didn't shoot.
Jim Kress says he won't forget this face, even though he says this man jumped him from behind.
He put his arm around my neck and put a gun to my head, and then there was someone over in the bushes too, and I actually grabbed him and flipped him over my shoulder, but he was so tall, he landed right on his feet and ran and grabbed my wallet.
Thomas Johnson III was charged with second-degree robbery with a firearm and 2 counts of grand larceny. The case was pleaded down to an attempted robbery.
I don't know why they only charged him with attempted robbery when they knew full well that it was armed robbery.
Jim says he testified to the grand jury, then never heard another word. The first he learned of the plea bargain was from us.
I was hoping they would, you know, sentence him and he'd learn his lesson, but I never heard anything till today.
From Rochester's mayor, a promise.
This administration will not sit by and idly watch you wreak havoc on our city. We will utilize the tools available to us to ensure that justice is served and that you are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
After pleading guilty to that lesser charge, Johnson served 3 years. When he was released in 2013, he did not check in with parole and was sent back to prison for another year, released on August 11th. The day of his release, Johnson checked into the Salvation Army. When he stopped showing up on the 15th, officials there notified parole, even though they were not required to do so. And when he fled from police on Hudson Avenue, Johnson was in violation of parole for a 3rd time. As for Jim,
just pray for the policeman's family.
Now, this is the second incident in 2 weeks raising questions about parolees here in Rochester. Parolee Michael Carruthers did not check in as required and is now accused of raping a teenager at the Liberty Pole downtown. Mayor Warren today called on state lawmakers to review how parolees are released into the community. Don?
All right. Hey, thank you, Jane. Someone asked me today, what was it like in your newsroom last night when all of this was unfolding? We listen to police scanners all the time. We don't hear every word, but there are certain phrases and words that call our attention to what is being said. Here is some of the audio that we heard last night.
Fired 2125, suspect in Amsterdam.
77. We need a rig. We need Hudson shut down at Cleon. We need Hudson at Roycroft shut down.
Yeah, when we hear the words officer down, we certainly do respond in a hurry. Not only the officer, but a third man shot as well. This person, while standing in the front yard, his aunt spoke with Kelsey Smith this afternoon, and Kelsey joins us now. Tell us more about how that aunt is doing, Kelsey.
Don, well, 24-year-old Jamal Bowler is home tonight. His aunt, who wanted to remain anonymous, tells me he was shot in the leg. That aunt tells me her nephew Bowler was in the front yard with their dog. His 2-year-old daughter was on the front steps. She was sitting on the porch when they first heard the police officer yelling at the suspect to stop. She said the suspect was running in and out of cars, refusing to stop for the officer, who was on foot.
The guy he was chasing kept going in and out of the cars across the street. Like, he was on the sidewalk, then he went in the street, and then went back on the sidewalk. And then another police officer's car pulled up. And as soon as it pulled up, he almost ran right into it. And just as he did that, the cop caught up to him, and he grabbed his arm. And as soon as he grabbed his arm, the guy turned around and shot him. And he fell immediately. And then the guy fell too. Now, I don't know why or how, but he fell. And when he fell, the gun went off the gun. And that's when my nephew got shot.
The aunt tells me Bowler grabbed his dog and his daughter so quickly and ran into the house. He didn't know he was shot at first until they got inside. Again, he is home tonight and is going to be okay. Live in Rochester, Kelsey Smith, 13M News. All
right. Hey, thank you, Kelsey. Obviously, we know we are from a community that envelops all families and all clergy showing up at the scene and elsewhere today, gathering to offer some support, offering support to those involved.
To see them on this side having a fallen comrade, it really affects all of us, because we don't want to see anybody lose their lives, especially those that's protecting, to serve and protect. And when they hurt, it really affects the whole organization as a whole.
And the community responding as well, some showing up to place flowers at that scene of last night's shooting. We have more ahead tonight on 13 WAB News at 6. We'll continue, of course, the coverage of the death of Rochester police officer Daryl Pierson, including how he is being remembered by his fellow officers. Last night's shooting death of a Rochester police officer marks the first time a city officer has been killed by gunfire in more than 50 years. It was back on December 11th, 1959. The patrolman Harold Shaw, a 9-year veteran of the department at that time, discovered a burglary in progress. This is the old Ray Oil Company. You remember that? It was on Lake Avenue near Ambrose Street, right by the Lake Avenue Baptist Church. Officer Shaw radioing for backup. The suspects opened fire. The father of 2 shot and killed back then. Officer Pierson's brothers and sisters on the force are obviously taking the news of his death very hard. 13 WAB's Jennifer Lee tells us tonight how he is being remembered, how the fellow officers are reaching out to cope with this and also to help emotionally.
Don, we spoke with former Greece Police Chief Todd Baxter, who knew Daryl Pierson personally. He said Pierson was the kind of person you wanted to know on and off duty. Now, here at RPD headquarters, we saw a memorial here for 14 of the fallen officers. Pierson is now at the 15th. And also everywhere, flags were at half staff. Before moving to Greece, Baxter served Rochester for 22 years and trained Pierson at the police academy. He said Pierson never backed down and was always out to protect the community and catch the bad guys.
He is like the epitome of what you want as a son, or what you want as a husband to your daughter, or something like that. He's the epitome of a great American person, and I think we see that in all the attributes that people are talking about him today.
Baxter was also at the hospital last night when Chief Simonelli made the announcement. He said the camaraderie could be felt among the more than 100 officers who were there, all of them who want justice. Reporting live, Jennifer Lee, 13 WHAM News.
All right, thank you, Jennifer, and Patrice and Cody as well for all of your coverage. It continues tonight. Also ahead, we'll take a look at Wall Street from today, plus from summer to fall in a matter of hours. Glenn Johnson will tell us when we can expect this change. As we mentioned earlier, the man accused of shooting and killing Officer Daryl Pierson is due to be arraigned at the hospital shortly. Thomas Johnson III faces 8 criminal charges, including 1 for aggravated murder. That's a murder charge that deals specifically with the death of a police officer. Johnson underwent surgery at the hospital and remains under police guard at the hospital. And as we said, he will be arraigned later in his hospital bed over at Strong. Within the last hour, Pierson's wife appeared at the public safety building for that news conference that we told you about. She has survived, of course, the officer by his wife, Amy, and the 2 children, a 4-year-old boy who we said went to kindergarten for the first time yesterday, also a 3-month-old girl. Many remembering that family tonight. Many throughout the community remembering the family as well. Flags have been lowered to half-staff on county, city, and state buildings, many private residences as well. All of this in memory of Officer Daryl Pierson, our police chief, speaking earlier today.
Yes, when we put on this uniform and go to work, we do think about maybe we're not coming back. And I think that is the intrinsic value of police officers in our community, that despite those thoughts, despite their love for their family, they put on this uniform and they do go out there and protect this city every day, every night.
And as we mentioned, Pierson leaving behind that wife and 2 young children. A page has been set up online to raise money for the family. The goal was to raise $10,000. So far, it has raised more than $11,000. If you would like to take part in that, we have a link to that page on 13wham.com. Also, tomorrow morning, there will be a special Blue Mass offered to honor Officer Pierson. That will begin at 7 a.m. at Our Lady Queen of Peace. That's over on Edgewood Avenue in Brighton. And when we return, the bright spots who protect and serve. I spent a lot of time today just watching people in our community, and I think it'll never be the same for us, at least for a few more weeks, as you drive down the street and see a police officer simply doing their job as they do every day. Finally tonight, our bright spot shines on the men and women in law enforcement who stand together every day to protect and serve. They're on the job today. They're on the job every day, directing traffic, investigating robberies, assaults, and deaths. The oft-used phrases somehow mean more today. Protect and serve, put their lives on the line every day. Today, they remember one who put his life on the line on a Rochester street last night.
Daryl made the ultimate sacrifice by courageously giving his life, protecting the city of Rochester.
The ultimate sacrifice. Daryl Pierson is a bright spot in our community, one of many bright spots who should never be taken for granted.
I ask the citizens of our community to stop when you see an officer, today and every day from this day forward, and take a moment to walk in their shoes, and then reach out and shake their hand or give them a hug and thank them for their service.
A hug and thank you for those bright spots who put their lives on the line every day, who protect and serve. A hug that embraces a young family with memories of a husband and father who made them proud.